The appearance of the totem scroll wasn't much different from a skill scroll, but when I held it in my hand, there was no prompt indicating I could learn it. Could it be that this kind of scroll requires self-study? I untied the fine hemp rope on the scroll and spread it out. The scroll was covered in dense text, symbols, and patterns. The patterns were intricate runes drawn on a person's back, forming designs somewhat like tattoos, perhaps due to the treasure. Chest reward. The patterns were very clear and regular, giving a feeling of modern printing. Next to the patterns were enlarged versions of the runes and some annotations. Fang Hao had studied the demon puppet notes. For a few days before this, it was evident that the runes on the scroll had many similarities to array patterns. Perhaps there was a certain connection with array patterns. Fang Hao couldn't understand the professional knowledge, but he did grasp some of the descriptions. Totems could be understood as sealing, utilizing, and casting. In other words, energy is drawn in the form of totems under a person's skin and then released when needed. And this totem of the Titan's body, it, seemed to be able to borrow the power of the Titan god to provide a certain boost to oneself. Fang Hao didn't understand much, but he was certain that it was similar in principle to a passive skill. It was just a bit special. Now that Nelson was studying array patterns, I could give it to him to research. I collected all the blueprints. The totem scroll was also put away. Directly. Looking up, I saw that the female troll had already changed into a linen dress and returned. She was standing silently below. Fang Hao looked at the group and said, Blackthorn, Great Wall, Heavy Arrow, and Citra. I will turn this place into an undead camp. You will use this city as a base to launch attacks on the tribes within the Bloody Mountain range. When the Lord's Book was upgraded to level 5, a new ability, Subordinate City Conversion, was added. In other words, original subordinate cities and subordinates could be converted into each other. To convert an original subordinate city into a subordinate city, there were only two options: Human City and Undead City. However, when converting a subordinate city into an original subordinate city, there were many more options, including original subordinate cities of humans, orcs, undead, bloodkin, and trolls. The difference between the two should be related to the types of cities that have been occupied. Fang Hao was very dissatisfied with the attributes of this city. The bonuses provided were not high, and there was still 50% internal strife. Moreover, most of the trolls in the city had been killed, so the added attributes weren't of much use. It would be better to turn the city into a second undead city. This would also facilitate future battles against other trolls in the Bloody Mountain range. Hearing Fang Hao's suggestion, the heroes also nodded slightly. My lord, if we can turn this place into an undead city, it can greatly shorten the time and increase the efficiency of occupying the Bloody Mountain range. Blackthorn stepped forward and said, turning this city into an undead city would be a great help for the subsequent battles. The other heroes had no other opinions. The female troll, Citra, her face instantly changed, but she didn't step forward to oppose the matter. As the victor, Fang Hao had complete disposal rights over this city. Even if she protested, there was nothing she could do. She only hoped that the undead city wouldn't have any impact on creatures like them. All right. Fang Hao agreed, directly opened the Lord's Book, and clicked on Convert City on Zhenbei City. Do you want to convert the original city, Zhenbei City? Yes. Please select the converted city faction, human faction, undead faction, undead faction. Array of light enveloped the entire city. Conversion complete. Zhenbei City. Next conversion countdown 29 days. Priority of 59 hours. This ability has a countdown, meaning that within a month, the city cannot be converted again. The light dissipated. The attributes of Zhenbei City also changed from a level 9 troll, original subordinate city, to a level 9 undead. Subordinate city. Fang Hao stood up and walked outside. Let's go, let's take a look. Everyone followed Fang Hao out of the hall. Outside was an empty city. The originally collapsed and damaged buildings had disappeared, leaving large open spaces. Resources were returned at a rate of 50% and were directly stored in the warehouse. This was the advantage of a transmigrator's city. Everything was digitized, and upgrading and dismantling were very fast. Fang Hao led everyone to the barracks area, opened the Lord's Book, and built some usable buildings such as warehouses, blacksmith shops, arrow towers, and magic towers. Then, he also built the building, skeleton conversion ground. Blackthorn, arrange for people to convert all those corpses. Fang Hao said to Blackthorn. In this battle, the troll corpses had piled up like mountains. The number of corpses from the Troll Alliance and the Bloodthroat tribe was enormous. After being processed by the Bone Dragons, Death Breath, only a pile of white bones remained. Originally, conversion required transporting them back to the main city, but now it wasn't that troublesome. Converting them on the spot could also allow them to join the battlefield faster. Yes, my lord, I will. Arrange it immediately. Blackthorn gave the order, and immediately, undead units began to throw batches of corpses into the skeleton conversion pool. The countdown for conversion began. Next, Fang Hao built some houses for the trolls to use, as living quarters for Citra, and other trolls. Now Citra couldn't live in the Lord's mansion, so she naturally had to live outside. After dealing with the buildings, Fang Hao began to make equipment for the subsequent battles. Open the Lord's Book, Overlord's Power chestplate, Iron 12, cast iron block 6, thick tough leather 10, linen. 15, thread 22, metal parts 25. Overlord's Power helmet, iron 8, cast iron block 3, thick tough leather 5, metal parts 12. Overlord's Power gloves, Overlord's Power boots, production quantity 3,000. Hundredfold amplification triggered, obtained Overlord's Power set 33,000. The original skeleton trolls were still wearing the Troll 3-piece. Set made by Fang Hao. Even though the Overlord's Power set had good attributes, Fang Hao didn't plan to replace the original equipment now. Producing 300,000 sets was for the newly converted trolls, and as backup for subsequent battles. Overlord's Wrath Battle Axe. Cast iron block 35, fine iron 12, metal parts 8, essence of destruction 2. The production of battle axes involved fine iron and essence of destruction. Fine iron is an advanced iron resource, and the territory currently has no method of producing it. But after so much time exchanging on the channel and with natives, there were 172 units in storage. Essence of destruction is a rare resource. Although there was a certain reserve, it was also relatively precious. Fang Hao set the production quantity to the maximum. 14, confirmed production. Hundredfold amplification triggered. Obtained Overlord's Wrath Battle Axe, 1414. A large number of weapons piled up on the open ground in front of him. Blackthorn and others continued to command the skeleton soldiers to classify and organize the produced equipment. Fang Hao moved to another open space. Continue production. Hundredfold amplification. Triggered. Obtained iron arrows 10, 1,000. Hundredfold amplification triggered. Obtained dynamite 2,000. Dragon binding ballista. Item after item of equipment piled up on the surrounding open ground. The female troll, Citra, widened her eyes, watching this incredible scene before her, thinking about being able to command undead, orcs, and lizardmen at the same time. Then the identity of this human might not be as simple as his appearance suggested. Troll, Citra's loyalty to you has increased by 20 points, current loyalty 92. The sudden prompt made Fang Hao look at the female troll. He saw Citra kneeling on the ground, constantly bowing to him and muttering something. Citra, Fang Hao called out. Citra stood up, quickly walked to Fang Hao, and knelt down again. Go release your tribesmen and tell them that if they work honestly, no one will trouble them in the future. If anyone dares to have any malicious intentions, I will not only kill her, but you will also be punished. Do you understand? Fang Hao continued. Yes, great divine being. Citra trembled and quickly replied, Divine being? Fang Hao didn't offer much explanation. It seemed Citra's sudden 20-point increase in loyalty was due to a misunderstanding of his identity. All right, you can go. From now on, you can just call me Lord. Yes, Lord, Citra replied, lowered her head, and quickly left. She walked towards it, the direction of the dungeon. In the afternoon, Fang Hao and Blackthorn and others confirmed the subsequent battles by comparing them with the map. After entrusting all matters to Blackthorn and others, he returned to the territory with Anja and Dimitar. Returning to the territory, it was already past 7 p.m. After notifying Yer to prepare dinner, Fang Hao went directly to the Organ Museum to find Nelson. Entering the hall, there was a chilling sensation. This place was much more effective than turning on the air conditioning. The second floor of the museum was not closed, and he saw Nelson drawing runes on a skeleton arm. It seemed he was practicing the content from the demon puppet notes. Hearing footsteps, Nelson looked up slightly. My lord, Nelson said, standing up. Scholar Nelson, I've obtained another type of totem rune here. As he spoke, he took out the totem scroll from his storage space. Oh, let me see. Nelson took it, opened it directly, and examined it carefully. Soon, Nelson put the scroll away again. He said, My lord, this kind of totem is not difficult. Do you want to have this kind of totem inscribed? Does this thing have any special effects? Fang Hao continued to ask. This kind of totem is also a type of rune. It seals special power within a living being's body, which can be invoked when needed. Nelson explained the function of the totem. Then what kind of power does this have? Fang Hao continued to ask. The level of this totem is not low, and according to the description, the effect is also very good, providing both magical and physical amplification. It would be of great benefit to you, my lord, Nelson explained softly. As I thought, it's a type of passive skill. In other words, this kind of totem, when inscribed on the back, is the same type as Mute's Kirin tattoo. It can add some special effects. It sounded pretty good. It sounds good. Can you inscribe it? Since it was a beneficial tattoo and a reward from a treasure chest, there was no need to doubt its safety. Although I rarely appeared in battles, this world still faced many dangers. Having more means of self-preservation was necessary. Nelson nodded slightly. I need to research and practice a bit. I will inform you then, my lord. All right. Fang Hao agreed and didn't disturb Nelson further. He walked directly out of the museum. Returning to the lord's mansion, he ate dinner. After playing some games with Yer, he went straight to sleep. Late. At night. Lysis City, a dim basement. In the center of the room was a large circular wooden table with a luminous stone chandelier hanging above it. The faint light made the entire space appear dark and mysterious. 12 people wearing black cloaks were gathered around the round table. The cloaks concealed their figures, and masks hid their appearances. There were many empty seats at the round table, indicating that nearly half of the people were absent. The black-robed figure in the main seat spoke. All right, whoever has completed their task can submit it. Everyone present seemed very familiar with the process. 3 people took out the collected information from their black robes and presented it to the black-robed figure in the main seat. The black-robed figure in the main seat put the information into his embrace and nodded slightly. Out of the 12 people present, there were only 3 pieces of information. The black-robed figure continued to take out a few tasks. He said, I know everyone has been very cautious lately, but the tasks still need to be completed. These are the tasks for this time. Everyone take a look and see who is capable of completing them. A stack of information was distributed. Everyone passed it around and looked at it one by one. I can complete this military factory task, a black-robed figure said, taking the task directly. I can take on the task of capturing the transmigrator, but I don't have a suitable interrogation location. Whoever has a safe place can cooperate, and the credit will be split evenly then. As soon as this person spoke, others quickly followed. Suit, I just finished preparing a hidden location here. We can cooperate. Okay, tell me the location, and I'll escort the person there directly after capturing them. All right. The black-robed figure who provided the location quickly wrote down an address on a piece of paper and handed it to the person who took the task. Tasks could be taken individually or completed in cooperation. Taking a task individually was difficult, but had a greater reward. Cooperating on a task, however, could share the risk, but made it easy to investigate each other's identities. This inadvertently increased the risk significantly. It wasn't to say that if you were a faceless one, your information was worthless. Soon, the tasks were distributed. The room fell silent again. At this moment, someone spoke again. The search by the City Lord's mansion has become increasingly strict on us, and there is also a very powerful team helping her. This problem must be solved. Indeed, half of the round table is already missing. No one can be sure if the next one will be themselves. I think this matter should be prioritized, at least to find the team that is helping her capture people. Whoever has clues about this team, I can arrange for people to eliminate them. Just eliminate the one in the City Lord's mansion directly, no need to investigate. What a big tone. If she could be killed, she would have died many times over already. Everyone started talking, one after another. In their words, there was worry about the one in the City Lord's mansion, fearing that the next one to leave the round table might be themselves. Even if the City Lord's mansion wouldn't kill them, the others here would. Once they were caught by the City Lord's mansion, the other faceless ones would deal with them. Just as everyone was somewhat chaotic and had no good solution, the man in the lead suddenly spoke at this moment. Speaking of this mysterious team, I do suspect one person here who fits the description of someone helping her. Everyone looked at him. Who? It's that cloth merchant who suddenly appeared in the city, Fang Hao. Fang Hao? Hearing this name, everyone present was slightly taken aback. This young man with black hair and black eyes, who designed clothes for Rebecca, opened a hot pot restaurant and a clothing store. Could be considered quite high profile in the city. Everyone had heard of this name, either directly or indirectly, but he was a bit too high profile, and not being a native of the city, people hadn't suspected him. Didn't that kid say he was from outside the city? How could that person possibly trust someone from outside? Someone questioned. Oh, yes, and based on his appearance, this kid is one of the transmigrators, so the possibility of it being him is very small. I've investigated this Fang Hao. His visits to the City Lord's mansion were just for taking some order business. He doesn't even know much about Lysis City, so the possibility of it being him is very small. I also got some special information. This Fang Hao doesn't like women. Don't look at how fair and clean he is. He actually likes men. Everyone discussed and speculated based on Fang Hao's situation. Although Fang Hao frequently entered and exited the City Lord's mansion, they didn't believe he was the one helping Rebecca. The leader, in the black robe, after listening to everyone's reasoning, gently clapped his hands, stopping the noisy discussion. He spoke, "I have received some more detailed information. This Fang Hao once registered a mercenary group in the mission hall, which means he has his own team, fulfilling the conditions for helping Rebecca." Hearing this news, the few people present fell silent. They hadn't found anything about a mercenary group. Everyone fell into thought, but soon someone raised a question again. Fang Hao is an outside cloth merchant. It's normal for him to have his own escort team. Judging that it's him based solely on this is still a bit far-fetched. Outside merchants all need to escort goods. Besides hiring mercenary groups, they also have their own teams for transportation and escort. In their spare time, they might register a mercenary group in the mission hall to increase income. Many people do this. Someone else spoke. "I also went to investigate the mercenary group. It's 2 days ago. How come I didn't find this kid registered a mercenary group?" Many people thought of mercenary groups. Capturing a faceless one is not an easy task, and a trustworthy and combat-capable team is a necessary condition. Someone thought of mercenary groups, but after searching and searching, they didn't find much of a clue. The leader in the black robe continued to reply, "Information about his mercenary group can no longer be found in the mission hall. This is also why I suddenly suspected him." Hearing this information, everyone fell silent again. Although their expressions were hidden by masks, the atmosphere in the entire room instantly became heavy. Not many people can hide their mercenary group registration information, and the purpose of hiding it is very suspicious. This made Fang Hao, in turn, worthy of everyone's suspicion. "I feel that we can arrest this cloth merchant. It can both verify whether he is involved in this matter and complete the investigation of the transmigrator. I suggest killing him directly. Regardless of whether he is related to this matter or not, he should be cleaned up directly. No, Fang Hao's prominence in the city is too great. I received news that he recently donated a large amount of supplies to the temple. Killing him will have a big impact on the city. Then, how should we handle it? Everyone suspects him, but we can't kill him, and we can't arrest him." Just as everyone was speaking up but had no good way to handle it, the leader in the black robe spoke again. "All right, stop arguing. Since we already suspect him, we must investigate him in detail. I will count this as a mission, and whoever completes it will receive the corresponding reward." After speaking, the black robe person took out a blank order, quickly wrote down the corresponding content, and pushed it to the center of the round table. The noisy scene became quiet again. People looked at the order in the middle, but no one reached out to take it for a long time. After a moment, a black-robed member with a relatively burly build spoke. "I can investigate this Fang Hao, but I can't guarantee whether he lives or dies. Okay? If it can be confirmed it's him, whether he's dead or alive is not important." "Okay, then I'll take this mission." After saying this, the person took the order. After that, everyone chatted about the city's situation, exchanging some intelligence and information they had obtained. It wasn't until late at night that this small, secret gathering gradually ended. Everyone left one after another, and the shadows in the corner of the room began to writhe. Hesitating for a few seconds in place, it followed in the direction that the leader in the black robe had left. The next morning, Fang Hao woke up as usual. He did his morning exercise around the territory and had just returned to the Lord's mansion. He saw Luoli sitting in the Lord's hall and an elderly Blackfoot cat beastman. "Lord," Luoli quickly got up and bowed. The old beastman's body trembled, and he also bowed. "Lord." The old beastman was the chief of the Blackfoot cat tribe. After hearing Luoli's story, he followed her to this territory. Seeing the undead soldiers all over the mountains and plains, all the tribesmen's hearts instantly became anxious. Fortunately, their trust in Luoli made them follow her into the city to see the Lord. However, the young and ordinary human in front of them couldn't be connected with the undead outside the city. It gave people a sense of unreality. Seeing Luoli return, Fang Hao also felt relieved. These past few days, Anya kept saying that Luoli wasn't good at riding and would fall to her death, and that she was too short to touch the bottom if she fell into the river. This made Fang Hao worry, fearing that Luoli would encounter some danger along the way. Now that she had returned safely, the hanging heart also settled down. His gaze fell back on the elderly Blackfoot cat. The elderly Blackfoot cat was about 1.3 to 1.4 meters tall, wearing a gray linen shirt and leaning on a wooden walking stick. He should be the chief of the Blackfoot cat tribe. "All right, it's good you're back. Please sit down." Fang Hao also sat down in his seat. The two got up. The old man carefully sat down on a chair. Luoli picked up a water cup and went to the cellar to get 2 cups of fruit wine, placing them in front of the old man and herself. "Luoli, why did you take so long?" Fang Hao asked curiously. Letting Luoli ride the bone dragon was not only to avoid dangers along the way, but also to reduce the time spent traveling. But Luoli had been gone for over a week. If she hadn't returned soon, Fang Hao would have arranged for someone to go look for her. "Don't even mention it, Lord. It's all because of that damned Black Rock tribe. If it weren't for having to be wary of them, I would have brought everyone back long ago, and we wouldn't have had to camp in the open and suffer like that on the road. Luoli swung her little legs, complaining nonstop. Cough, cough. The old man coughed twice, glaring at Luoli, signaling her not to talk so much. Fang Hao also understood the meaning behind it. It seemed that the migration of the Blackfoot Cat tribe also involved some conflict with the Beastman tribes. What kind of conflict do you have with the Black Rock tribe? Tell me in detail. Fang Hao looked at the two of them. Before Luoli could speak, the old man spoke first. I dare not deceive you, Lord. We used to live near Tazgo City. Because of some conflict with the Black Rock tribe, we had no choice but to move to a new place to seek the protection of a powerful lord. The old man said, placing his walking stick aside and directly kneeling on the ground, bowing deeply. Although Fang Hao's territory looked relatively dangerous, it was undoubtedly powerful. It possessed terrifying military strength. Only Fang Hao had the ability to provide them with protection and not fear the threat of the Black Rock tribe. Is this Black Rock tribe very strong? How many people do they have? What was the conflict between you? Fang Hao asked the questions in his mind. Since he had promised Luoli, Fang Hao naturally wouldn't drive these people away, but he also needed to know what kind of opponent he was about to face. Lord, the Black Rock tribe is a large beastman tribe. There are tens of thousands of strong beastmen in the tribe. During a previous hunt, the young people in our tribe accidentally entered the Black Rock tribe's hunting range, so the Blackfoot Cat tribe has been oppressed by the Black Rock tribes ever since. In despair, we decided to move the entire tribe to a new place to survive. The old man recounted the events. Finally, he didn't forget to add, but please rest assured, Lord, the actions of the Blackfoot Cats have always been covert. We were very careful along the way and definitely did not cause you any trouble. Beastman tribes are often like this. There are no fixed rules. Whichever tribe is stronger and has more strong members has absolute say. If your village has no strength and few people, you can only be at the mercy of the powerful tribes. It's fine to rely on a reasonable large tribe, but if you encounter any unreasonable one, the village is finished. Not all races can be like the Blackfoot Cats, able to decisively abandon their original village and find a new place to settle. Hearing the old man's words, Fang Hao subconsciously glanced at Luoli beside him. Luoli was simple-minded, and she was bound by a contract with Fang Hao, so she couldn't lie to him. Seeing Luoli's calm expression, he knew that what the old man said was true. Fang Hao wasn't afraid of the Black Rock tribe if they only had a few tens of thousands of people. If the other party really chased them here, they would just be seeking death. Fang Hao didn't ask further about this matter. He spoke. Have you chosen a place to settle? The land on the Bright Moon Plateau is fertile and the population is very sparse, so it's quite suitable for you to live. As soon as the old man heard this, a look of joy appeared on his face. Just as he was about to agree, Luoli jumped up like a cat whose fur had been ruffled. No, we'll just find a place nearby. After saying this, Luoli kept giving the old man meaningful glances. The old man immediately knew there was something wrong. He also followed suit and said, Yes, we'll just find a place nearby to build a village. The number of people in the village isn't large, so it won't take up much space. All right? The few of them discussed on the map. Finally, the two chose the location of the former kobold camp northeast of the main city. That was where Fang Hao had his first battle after transmigrating. After killing the kobolds, the camp had been empty. The location was quite good, and the buildings were already there. There was no big problem with the Blackfoot Cats being willing to build a village there, especially since their numbers weren't large, only over 200 people. After selecting the location, Fang Hao allocated some supplies to them. Luoli and the old man then directly took their tribesmen to the new village location. After breakfast, Fang Hao still had things to do. He went straight to the industrial area, opened the Lord's book, and found the fine stone processing plant blueprint. Fine stone processing plant, wood 3,000, hardwood 1,800, stone 2,200, stone brick 1,200, iron 420, metal parts 120. He found an empty space. He chose to build directly. Light instantly, sword, outlining the shape of a fine stone processing plant. When the light dispersed, the processing plant appeared before his eyes. Fine stone processing plant. Placement, worker 0 to 10. Raw material, stone brick 2. Production, fine stone. Brick, description. Through processing, stone bricks can be made into fine stone bricks with higher density. Fang Hao immediately summoned 10 laborer skeletons and assigned them to the fine brick factory. The skeletons immediately started working, going to the warehouse to move stone bricks and then transporting them to the factory for processing. Fine stone bricks were upgrade materials for a level 10 lord's mansion, which meant they would be used in large quantities for future building. Upgrades. Whether it was for his own upgrades or selling on the channel, the demand was huge. Fang Hao simply built 20 more processing plants to produce simultaneously, speeding up the production of fine bricks. After building the fine brick processing plants, Fang Hao went to the quarry area and built 5 large quarries. He dismantled all the original ordinary quarries and transferred the workers to the large quarries for mining. After building the 2 new types of blueprints, Fang Hao also increased the number of tile kilns to 50, increasing work efficiency. After finishing everything, Fang Hao returned to the Lord's mansion. It was morning, and he had nothing to do. He studied books in his room for a while, then used divine arrival to check on the Blackfoot cats building their village. The Blackfoot cats weren't tall, but their activity level was very good. The buildings in the village had already been cleaned out, and the old village chief was directing a few male Blackfoot cats to repair the damaged village gate. Actually, there was still plenty of time. With the territory's protection, their location was completely safe, let alone the Black Rock tribe they were worried about. Even some fierce wild beasts wouldn't approach here. Installing the village gate sooner or later didn't make much difference. Instead, it was these fast-moving Blackfoot cats that caught Fang Hao's attention. Most adult Blackfoot cats had reached Tier 5 or 6. Moreover, their characteristics were the same as Luoli's. They were very agile at climbing walls and running on roofs. Seemed they were a very good scout unit, and could also be used to gather some special intelligence. Thump, thump, thump. Suddenly, he heard a knock on the door. He canceled divine arrival, got up and opened the door and saw Year standing outside. "Master, Scholar Nelson is waiting for you outside." "Oh, okay." Fang Hao went downstairs and out of the Lord's mansion. Outside, Nelson was sitting on a long bench waiting silently. Seeing Fang Hao come out, he got up and said, "Lord, the materials for the totem are ready. We can start drawing at any time." Fang Hao gave the totem scroll to Nelson last night. Even though the undead don't need rest, it was still somewhat surprising that he had thoroughly researched the totem scroll in one night. He originally thought that it would take Nelson at least 2 or 3 days to get results. "Do you need to practice a bit?" Fang Hao asked, a little worried. Nelson's tone was still calm. "The totem has detailed drawing methods marked on it. It's not a difficult thing." Fang Hao understood what Nelson meant. The scroll didn't just record the theory, but the answer. You just need to draw it out according to the answer. Fang Hao was fine with this kind of answer. The reward scrolls, opened from the treasure chests, like skill scrolls, are convenient for transmigrators to use. Naturally, they wouldn't be too complicated or cumbersome. Now that Nelson says there won't be any problems, there really won't be any problems. "Okay, we can start drawing now," Fang Hao said. Nelson nodded slightly. "Please, follow me, my lord." After speaking, he turned and walked towards the organ museum. Fang Hao silently followed behind, entering the gloomy organ museum together. Passing through the hall, they entered the second-floor area of the museum. The second floor was a secret room. Usually it was where Nelson processed corpses and created skeleton heroes. Once he started working, the door to the secret room would be closed and only opened again after Nelson finished his work. In the center of the secret room was a stone bed half the height of a person. Beside the stone bed were 3 shelves, on which were placed various medicines and tools. "My lord, you need to take off your upper body clothing and lie on this stone bed." Nelson placed his wooden staff aside and began to fiddle with the bottles and jars next to him. Fang Hao always had the feeling that Nelson was going to dissect him. But despite these thoughts, he still took off his shirt and lay naked on the stone bed. As soon as he lay down, a bone-chilling coldness came over him. This coldness wasn't just the coldness of the stone, but a kind of coldness that seemed to penetrate into the bones and freeze the soul. But it wasn't a big problem, and it wasn't that unbearable. "My lord, the materials for drawing the totem, including basil, silver blossom, regeneration powder, and giant spirit blood. I went to Duojin's place this morning and bought the missing materials from the Trade Alliance shop." Nelson walked over and said calmly. Fang Hao listened silently. He had basically never heard of these materials. "The shop also sells blood?" Fang Hao noticed the giant spirit blood. "The giant spirit blood was found in the warehouse. It should be spoils of war that you brought back," Nelson replied. The spoils of war in the warehouse must have been brought back by him, but he really had no impression of this giant spirit blood. Perhaps it was pressed under some items and he didn't see it. Nelson crushed several herbs and then shattered the amber-shaped gemstone, dripping the sealed bright red liquid inside into a container. After stirring for a while, the ink needed for the totem was ready. Nelson picked up a silver needle that had been prepared and came to Fang Hao's side. "My lord, there may be some pain if it's too painful. The orc girl over there has anesthetics that can reduce the pain." The orc girl with anesthetics should be Hongguo, who is studying herbalism. It seems she's learning very quickly. She can already make anesthetics. "That's not necessary. I don't look that delicate." Fang Hao patted his exposed back, signaling Nelson to go ahead. Nelson didn't hesitate. His skeletal fingers pinched the silver needle and began to prick down. His fingers turned into after images. like Parkinson's disease, quickly pricking Fang Hao's back. In just a moment, dozens of needles were pricked into a small area. Blood oozed from Fang Hao's back. Ouch, damn it! Not long after, Hong Guo knelt aside, constantly wiping the sweat from Fang Hao's forehead. After using anesthetics, although the pain was reduced, Fang Hao's forehead was still covered in sweat. Swollen and bleeding areas gradually formed rune patterns. After another half an hour, the drawing of the totem was finally completed. Acquired totem, giant spirit body. Giant spirit body. Abilities, giant spirit body, giant body. Giant physique, passive. Stamina, plus 80%. Strength, plus 50%. Giant spirit body, active. After releasing, a giant spirit projection is generated, which attacks the target according to itself. The projection attack power is 300% of itself, and 100% of the damage caused restores stamina, lasting for 15 seconds. At the moment of completion, Fang Hao also received a system notification. The giant spirit body skill is divided into two types. One is a passive skill called Giant Physique. As long as the totem is drawn, the body will be amplified. At this time, Fang Hao could clearly feel that his muscles were contracting, becoming more powerful than before. The second type, Giant Spirit Body, only takes effect after being actively released. But the attributes are also very powerful. It will imitate itself to attack, and the damage caused will restore 100% of stamina. A skill that makes him invincible in battle, but unfortunately it only lasts for 15 seconds. The totem is complete. Fang Hao sat up from the stone bed with gritted teeth, and a burst of stinging pain came from his back. Scholar Nelson, is drawing totems always this painful? Fang Hao touched his back, his hand full of blood. Nelson shook his head slightly. You are the first living being to lie on this stone bed. I cannot give you an accurate answer. Okay. It seems that he is the first living person in Nelson's hands. It's good enough to be able to complete the drawing. Walking out of the organ museum, Fang Hao lay naked on a bench, casting divine advent on a skeleton warrior passing by. He could immediately observe his body through the skeleton warrior. Looking at himself, lying on the bench, his back was already swollen, and the pattern of the totem was slightly raised. However, the totem didn't have any color, which means it wouldn't be revealed outside like a tattoo to be discovered by others. This is also good. If it is exposed, it would be too ostentatious. If someone recognizes the totem, they will be prepared during battle. Without any traces, it can be considered his hidden trump card. After watching, he canceled Divine Advent. The skeleton looked around blankly and continued the work he had just been doing. How do you feel? Nelson also walked out. Fang Hao touched his chest and abs. I feel like my body has gotten better. But Nelson shook his head slightly. The flesh is weak. Immortality is eternal. Why should the Lord care about these useless bodies? Indeed. Let's go find an open space first to test the power of the totem and see what the effect is. Fang Hao agreed and suggested to test the ability. Several people walked out of the city, looking for an open space. Fang Hao stood in the middle of the open space and immediately cast Giant Spirit Body. Whoosh! Faint blue energy rose from Fang Hao's body. The next second, a huge blue translucent figure appeared behind Fang Hao. The blue projection was 5 to 6 meters tall, with a strong body and arms, but its facial features were blurred and unclear. Fang Hao looked at the blue projection and drew the long sword from his waist. The giant spirit body also mimicked his movements, conjuring a huge long sword in its hand. Fang Hao slashed down with his long sword. The giant spirit's long sword also slashed out. Bang! A huge scratch was left on the ground. This made everyone present open their mouths wide, looking at the scene in front of them in disbelief. No one had expected that the huge phantom would also have physical damage, and its power would be so great. Even the ground could be scratched. If it were to hit someone, it would probably be blasted into pieces. Fang Hao was also pleasantly surprised. He immediately took out a shield from the storage space and put away the long sword. The giant spirit phantom also made the same movement. The long sword in its hand disappeared and transformed into a shield of energy. It seemed that its movements were synchronized with Fang Hao. The giant spirit body could only be effective for 15 seconds. Fang Hao put away the shield again and took out the Starfire staff. The giant spirit body also had a staff with a similar shape in its hand again. Since melee attacks could be imitated, he didn't know if spells would work. Fang Hao thought to himself, directly condensing Fire Arrow. Sure enough, a flaming arrow gradually condensed in front of the giant spirit body, formed from fire elements. However, this fire arrow was proportional. To its size, more than 2 meters long like a javelin, the staff in his hand pointed forward. The 2 arrows flew towards the target one after the other. Clang! Fang Hao's sword was inserted into the tree trunk, and a burst of burning smoke rose. Boom! The giant spirit body's flame javelin blasted a large pit in a roar, and a raging fire burned on the ground. Seeing that the effect of the giant spirit body was about to end, Fang Hao released Flame Spider. Again, 6 face-sized flame spiders immediately appeared in front of him, and the giant spirit body also released the same spell. Although there were also 6, the size of the flame spiders was close to that of a bull, and their whole bodies exuded scorching flames. Before Fang Hao could order an attack, the giant spirit body's 15 seconds had ended, the blue figure disappeared, and the 6 bull-sized spiders also dissipated. Only the spiders summoned by Fang Hao himself were left behind, waiting for orders. Fang Hao waved his staff, and the summoned spiders immediately dispersed. After testing the power of the giant spirit body, Fang Hao also showed a satisfied smile. It could be said that the effect brought by the totem had exceeded his expectations. The condensed giant spirit body was like his second body. Not only could it imitate melee attacks, but it could also condense the same spells. Moreover, the power and effect were 300% of his own. Fang Hao felt that this totem scroll had exceeded the purple level, and its level was close to the power of an orange skill. At this time, Nelson and the others also came over. "Sir, how do you feel?" Nelson asked softly. "The totem is very good, and the power is also very great, but my back is a little sore." Fang Hao reached out and gently scratched his back. "Sir, this is the first time you have used the power of the totem, so naturally there will be some discomfort. When the swelling on your back subsides, you will no longer have this stinging sensation after using it more often," Nelson explained. "That's right, it's probably normal to have some stinging pain since the back is still swollen. Is there a limit to this totem? I mean, will bathing rub it off?" Fang Hao turned around and led the others towards the territory. "That won't happen, but, sir, you should pay attention that you need to use it once every period of time to stimulate the effect of the totem, so as to prevent the giant spirit blood from being rejected by the body," Nelson followed and explained. "Then how long do I need to cast it once?" Fang Hao continued to ask. "I'm not sure about the exact time, but once every half a month should be fine," Nelson replied again. Nelson wouldn't deceive himself, and he was also the only intellectual in the territory. Besides, casting it once every half a month was not something difficult to do. He only needed to find a place where no one was around to cast the totem and then release 1 or 2 skills. "Oh, okay, I understand." Fang Hao nodded in response. The group returned to the city, and Nelson returned to the organ museum to continue studying the demon notes in his hand. Fang Hao also returned to his room to continue studying the book, Multi-Headed Fire Python Mysteries 1. The sky gradually darkened. After eating dinner, Fang Hao returned to his room to rest. Just as he was lying on the bed brewing a trace of sleepiness, the Lord's book sent a prompt from the conch of sound transmission. Fang Hao sat up instantly, opened the storage space, and found that it was the conch of sound transmission that Rebecca had given him. He took it out and put it to his ear, and Rebecca's voice immediately came. "Come to the city. They're on the move again." The content conveyed was very short, but he understood what she wanted to express. It seemed that Rebecca had found out about the Faceless One's new actions again. He put away the conch of sound transmission. Fang Hao lay back on the bed and went to sleep. The next day, dusk, Lys's city, City Lord's mansion, study. Fang Hao sat in the chair, silently watching Rebecca trying on clothes. This time, Fang Hao's storage space was filled with all kinds of clothing and accessories. In addition to Rebecca's custom-made clothing, the others were all clothing prepared for the opening of the clothing store for display and sale. Many days had passed in the blink of an eye, and the decoration of the clothing store was nearing completion. "This piece was also designed by you. All the fabric stores in the city don't have as many ideas as you do," Rebecca said, looking at herself in the mirror. "It's just some simple small changes. It's not a special idea. If you have the ability, you have the ability. You don't need to be modest." Rebecca asked again. "I'm very satisfied with these pieces. How much are they?" Fang Hao smiled slightly and said, "Madam Rebecca, my clothing store is about to open in the next few days. Can I ask you to be the image spokesperson for our store? Of course, as a reward, new products from the store will be sent to you for free." "Huh?" Rebecca was slightly stunned and instantly turned her head to look directly into Fang Hao's eyes. A pair of big eyes revealed a hint of doubt. Fang Hao was not a fool, and he was very shrewd. Was this kid trying to trick her? But she was still curious and asked, "What is an image spokesperson?" "Rebecca holds the core power of Lys's city. She possesses an unparalleled level of credibility and influence within the city. Whether they are nobles or beggars in the slums, they might not know how many legs a toad has, but they definitely know who Rebecca is. If a clothing store were to be opened in the city, Rebecca would be the best promotional model." It can be said that when Fang Hao decided to open the store, he had already set his sights on Rebecca. He had demonstrated special design talent and was helping her deal with the faceless ones. Now that he brought up this matter, it would be difficult for Rebecca to refuse him. As for the male spokesperson for Lys's city, the best candidate would be the city lord, Aubrey. However, Fang Hao had not had any contact with Aubrey. Moreover, Aubrey's condition was not too good. He generally looked listless, giving people the feeling of someone who had not fully recovered from a serious illness. In other words, he looked rather dispirited and weak. Therefore, Fang Hao was still considering and searching for a suitable candidate for the male model. What is an image spokesperson? Rebecca asked curiously. She wondered what strange ideas Fang Hao had in his mind this time. Simply put, it means using your image to promote the fabric store and increase product popularity, Fang Hao explained his understanding of a spokesperson. He wasn't sure if his understanding was accurate, but that was the general idea, to attract customers by relying on Rebecca's image. Hearing Fang Hao's explanation, Rebecca also understood. In the past, fabric stores in the city would also send some clothes to the city lord's mansion, also using her influence to attract those nobles to buy clothes in their stores. Although the form was similar, Rebecca did not think that Fang Hao only intended to do this. He must have more ideas. Thinking of this, Rebecca's heart stirred, and she deliberately put on a stern face, looking a little displeased. She said, "Is that all? You wouldn't think I don't understand anything, would you? Huh?" Fang Hao's heart skipped a beat. Had the concept of a spokesperson already appeared here? That shouldn't be the case. He had also been to several fabric stores, but he hadn't seen any model advertisements. "Then, madam, what do you mean?" Fang Hao asked tentatively. Rebecca leaned against the desk and said softly, "You wouldn't think that I, in Lys's city, lacked the money for a few pieces of clothing, would you?" Rebecca naturally wouldn't lack the money for a few pieces of clothing. She would even be willing to pay handsomely to customize a dress to her liking. Of course, Fang Hao also didn't think that Rebecca would agree to his idea so easily. However, lowering the initial price would better prepare him for Rebecca's counteroffer. Fang Hao continued, "How about this? For the clothes you endorse, you get 5% of the profit for each piece sold. The more you sell, the more income you can get." "No, that's too little, 50%. Rebecca shook her head and then stated her desired price. "A maximum of 10%. If not, I can only find someone else." Fang Hao's expression also became serious. The price Rebecca was asking for almost made him faint. "Okay, deal. Tell me, what should a spokesperson do?" Rebecca immediately showed a triumphant smile, then added, "Let's be clear. I don't have time to go to the store with you for promotions. At that time, I will hire a painter to paint full-body portraits of the clothing styles, which can be displayed in the store. You don't need to go to the store," Fang Hao explained. Rebecca thought for a moment. "That's possible, but these portraits also take a long time. 1 or 2 are fine, but I don't have time for more. Current portrait painting still requires the model to remain still for a long time, and then the painter does the painting. Rebecca didn't have the time to spend on this. I've already thought about this. I have a magic item here that can temporarily record images. At that time, you just need to change into the clothes and strike a few poses," Fang Hao replied with a smile. He was referring to the photo function on the Lord's book. He also didn't need Rebecca to hold a pose for a long time, as that would indeed be too time-consuming. As long as the photos were taken, the person would remain in a still state. This would allow the artist to paint from the selected photos and also facilitate some later modifications. There's such an item. Why haven't I heard of it? Rebecca was a little skeptical. Fang Hao directly opened the Lord's book, took a photo of the room, and sent it to Rebecca. "Look, it's this kind. This is too magical." Rebecca's eyes widened. "I didn't lie to you, did I?" "How about you take pictures of all the clothes I brought tonight so I can find an artist tomorrow?" Fang Hao suggested. "That's also possible." As soon as it was decided, Rebecca immediately struck various poses, which Fang Hao recorded using the photo function. This time, he brought a total of 3 new outfits, plus the cheongsam sent before, making a total of 4. Rebecca changed into each one and had photos taken. All the clothes were photographed. Rebecca then began to sift through the photos, carefully selecting 4 that she was more satisfied with, and also instructed Fang Hao to remind the artist to make adjustments in certain areas. Fang Hao naturally agreed. He also hoped that the resulting promotional advertisements would be more perfect, so he could earn more money. After dealing with the clothing matter, Fang Hao continued to ask, "Is there any news about the mission you mentioned?" "Those guys will be taking action in the next few days, but there is no specific information about the location and time." When mentioning the faceless ones, Rebecca's expression instantly darkened. Through their cooperation, they had captured quite a few faceless ones. She originally thought these people would lie low for a while. However, she didn't expect that they would have new movements after only 2 days. Moreover, this time, their actions were quite audacious, and the information had reached her ears a few days in advance. Okay, then I will stay in the city for a few more days. If there's any intelligence, arrange for someone to notify me, Fang Hao said. And Rebecca also nodded, indicating that she understood. The purpose of their cooperation was basically the same. Rebecca wanted to consolidate her power in the city, while Fang Hao wanted to prevent the Faceless Ones from threatening the crossing, transmigrators like them. Only by eliminating the Faceless Ones to the greatest extent possible would they settle down and not dare to make any major moves. Coming out of the city lord's mansion, Fang Hao and Njia had just returned to their residence. They saw a tall, short-haired man suddenly walk out of the main gate. Fang Hao was slightly taken aback. Although the night was dark, a person's physique and height still had a certain degree of recognition. He was sure that there was no such man living with them. "Wait a minute," Fang Hao immediately called out to him. The man turned around, saw Fang Hao, and said directly, "When did you enter the city?" Fang Hao's brows furrowed deeply. The familiar voice, coupled with the handsome appearance, immediately allowed Fang Hao to recognize the person's identity. Rolana, the emotionally unstable vampire. She had cut her long hair short at this time, slicking it back like those playboys. Dressed in a sharp, noble outfit, she looked like a delicate-faced young noble master. Fang Hao didn't ask why she was dressed like this. Cutting her hair and starting over wasn't necessarily a bad thing for Rolana. Instead, he directly asked, "Rolana, what are you doing out so late?" Rolana ran a hand through her hair and said flatly, "Doesn't the Lord know that the Evernight race prefers the night?" Fang Hao didn't care about Rolana's tone. Instead, he continued, "It's so late. Everyone in the city has already rested, and it seems like you have nowhere to go." Rolana smiled. "I'm just bored, going to the tavern at the street corner to sit and have a couple of drinks, and I'll be back later." There was indeed a tavern up ahead, and it stayed open very late. As long as Rolana didn't cause trouble, it was... "Fine. Okay, be careful," Fang Hao instructed, but this sentence seemed a bit redundant. "Thank you for your concern, Lord." Rolana performed a gentleman's noble bow and elegantly walked towards the street corner. Fang Hao watched Rolana's back disappear into the distance. He also directly entered the courtyard and returned to his room to rest. The next day, after breakfast, Fang Hao saw Rolana again. Last night, he learned from the maid that Rolana had arrived in Lys's city a few days ago. She had changed into neutral clothing, sometimes going out during the day and sometimes at night. Due to her difficult personality, the maids didn't dare to chat with her. "Rolana, you've been out for so long. Aren't you afraid of problems at Glorious Moon Plateau?" Fang Hao looked at Rolana opposite him. "There's Bloodhunter. Where would I be needed?" Rolana said casually. Rolana was tall and had exquisite and beautiful features. At that time, when she was in love with the Red Duke, she made all the men in the city rivals. Now dressed like this, there was a hint of heroism in her eyebrows. She had changed from someone who only attracted men to someone who attracted both men and women. "Is the medicinal herb planting going smoothly?" Fang Hao continued to ask. "I've already had those guys start planting, but I'm a little curious about what those people you gave me did before. Why can't they even do basic planting?" Rolana seemed to suddenly remember and asked. "Those people have various professions, but each and every one of them is absolutely strong and healthy. Just arrange for farmers to teach them," Fang Hao explained. The people sent to Glorious Moon Plateau were some mountain bandits who had been captured, but Fang Hao also didn't expect that these people couldn't even do the most basic farming. Anyway, the rest of the matters are handed over to Bloodhunter. "He's in charge of everything," Rolana said casually, not continuing to inquire about the origins of these people. "And when do you plan to go back?" "Go back and do what? It's so lively here. Blood Castle is cold and boring." Rolana leaned her head back, casually picked up a fruit, and ate it. Fang Hao's eyes darted. Wasn't he just missing a male model? Rolana's current image was quite suitable for promotional posters. Perhaps sensing Fang Hao's gaze fixed on her, Rolana frowned and said, "You should restrain your gaze. It's also a guarantee for your safety." After all, she was a dark gold-level hero, and she easily noticed Fang Hao's gaze. Fang Hao knew that the other party had misunderstood him. He said directly, "Rolana, do you want to be a model for the clothing store? In the future, if there are new styles of clothes, you can wear them in advance." Hearing Fang Hao's words, Rolana's curiosity was piqued. She raised her head and looked at Fang Hao. "What kind of model?" "The clothing store in Lys's city is about to open. I plan to promote the store, and I happen to be missing a male model now. I feel that your current image is quite suitable," Fang Hao explained. Then, Fang Hao briefly explained the type of advertisement to Rolana. Rolana's eyes widened. "I'm suitable for men's clothing? I've already found Rebecca for women's clothing. She's the city lord's wife, and has some influence in Lys's city. As for the second person I think is capable in appearance, it's you, especially since you've cut your hair short now," Fang Hao said with a smile. Rolana was silent for a moment, but finally nodded slightly and agreed. Okay, what should I do? Fang Hao took out a few sets of men's clothing from his storage space and handed them to Rolana. It's nothing special, just change into these clothes, and then I'll take pictures and give them to the artist to turn into portraits. Fang Hao explained the photo function to her again and took pictures of Rolana. Finally, both male and female models were complete. In the afternoon, Fang Hao and Njia arrived at the entrance of a courtyard. This was Browning's residence, a second-rate painter in the city, but he also had many secrets of his own. He was known for his special pigment mixing and his memory. As long as he saw something once, he could come back and paint the people and scenes from his memory on the canvas. Previously, he was also captured and interrogated by the Faceless Ones, and was rescued by someone arranged by Rebecca. Later, Fang Hao also met him in the temple, so they had met before. He gently knocked on the door. Thump, thump, thump. Who is it? A man's lazy voice came from inside the room. After a rustling sound of getting dressed, the door opened, revealing Browning's disheveled appearance. He was naked from the waist up, wearing a pair of linen pants. Browning looked at Fang Hao with a frown. Mr. Browning, you haven't forgotten me again, have you? Last time in the temple you said you would buy me a drink, Fang Hao said with a playful smile. Browning instantly came to his senses and remembered Fang Hao's identity. Oh, it's you. You are, Fang Hao, Fang Hao reminded. Right. Mr. Fang Hao, I had some drinks yesterday and my mind is a bit slow, Browning explained, patting his forehead. At this moment, a woman walked out of the room. Her clothes were casually draped over her body, exposing a large area of skin. She leaned against Browning, her gaze falling on Fang Hao outside the door. She said in a sweet voice, Browning, who is this? You haven't introduced him to me. Which family's young master is this? He's so handsome. This is Mr. Fang Hao, a famous merchant in the city, Browning finished introducing, then lightly patted the woman's backside and said, Go, you go back first. I'll come find you tonight. Okay, don't forget, the woman reminded with seductive eyes. As she passed by Fang Hao, she didn't forget to remind him, You can come together tonight. Sister will give you a freebie. After saying that, she walked away, constantly throwing seductive glances. Browning's room was a bit messy. There were piles of clutter everywhere, and unwashed clothes were stacked in the corner. On the walls, however, hung various framed oil paintings, mostly of female figures. Mr. Fang Hao, you must have something. You need me for this time, right? Browning brought over 2 chairs and placed them in front of Fang Hao and Njia. Yes, I want to ask Mr. Browning to paint a few pictures for me. The quality must be guaranteed, and of course, the price is negotiable. Fang Hao stated his purpose directly. Oh? That's absolutely no problem. Are you the subject? Browning said enthusiastically. His daily expenses were quite high, so he naturally wouldn't refuse business that came to his door. He took out his treasured fruit wine, intending to entertain this unexpected guest. Not me, but Lady Rebecca. Clang! The pottery cup in Browning's hand dropped and shattered into 2 pieces on the wooden mat. He didn't even bother to pick up the broken cup and said in surprise, Lady Rebecca, the city lord's wife? Yes, so the effect must meet the requirements. Otherwise, it will be difficult to get her approval, Fang Hao said seriously. Browning's expression changed rapidly, and finally, he said somewhat excitedly, No problem, of course, no problem. I will definitely make her satisfied. Rebecca was one of the top nobles in Lysis City. Being able to paint for her was also a symbol of honor. Once his skills were recognized by Rebecca, he would also gain some fame in the painting world in the future. Okay, Fang Hao nodded in agreement. Next, he told Browning about the size of the canvas and the requirements for the photos. Browning looked at the photos in the Lord's book, somewhat incredulously. Although Fang Hao said it was a treasure, it still shocked him for a while. Finally, at Fang Hao's reminder, he began to prepare a canvas of sufficient size and started painting, referencing the photos. 2 hours later, the canvas had been colored, and the basic colors were outlined. Browning would continue to refine it. Fang Hao would need to come back tomorrow to continue making adjustments based on the photos. After leaving Browning's residence, it was already getting late. Fang Hao took Njia and returned directly to their lodging. He learned from the maid that Rolana had gone to the tavern to drink again. Fang Hao went directly back to his room, intending to rest. As soon as he closed the door, a figure gradually emerged from the shadow in the corner. Fang Hao's heart skipped a beat. His right hand swept across the Lord's book, and the staff was already in his hand. Subconsciously, he was about to counterattack and then leave the room. Then he saw Xiao Yu standing in the shadow. Xiao Yu, you managed to scare me again? Fang Hao said in annoyance, putting away his weapon. Xiao Yu smiled slightly and apologized. Sorry, my lord. I have some important information this time that I need to tell you. Xiao Yu had been playing the role of a spy, gathering some secret information about the Faceless for Fang Hao. Oh, what information? Fang Hao sat down beside her. Xiao Yu said directly. My lord, the Faceless have already suspected you, and they will reveal a false piece of information to the City Lord's mansion to confirm whether you are the one helping Rebecca. Upon hearing this news, Fang Hao's brows furrowed instantly. In this era, without cameras and surveillance equipment, his own caution combined with Rebecca's cover, he shouldn't have been detected by the other party at all, so why did they suspect him? How did they suspect me? Fang Hao asked. Xiao Yu replied, because there is a high-ranking official in the City Lord's mansion among the Faceless. He found that the mission hall had hidden your registered mercenary information, and coupled with your frequent visits to the City Lord's mansion, he deduced it was you. After a pause, she added, some of the Faceless also think it has nothing to do with you, but they still planned a false piece of information to confirm whether it is related to your mercenary group. Listening to this, Fang Hao also understood where his identity had gone wrong. It must have been Rebecca who hid his registered mercenary information to keep his identity secret, but he didn't expect it to become a clue for these people's suspicion. So, this operation, I just need not to go, right? Fang Hao thought for a moment and replied, that is indeed the simplest method, but it cannot eliminate the other party's suspicion. I think it would be better to use this opportunity to completely get rid of their suspicion, Xiao Yu said, stating her idea. Fang Hao glanced at Xiao Yu and quickly pondered in his mind. The simplest method, of course, was to know the other party's conspiracy, so simply cancel the operation and stay put. But in this way, the other party would become even more suspicious. At that time, they would also arrange other conspiracies to test Fang Hao or directly carry out assassination attempts. Yu's idea was to use the other party's test this time to dispel the Faceless' suspicion and make subsequent actions more convenient. What you said makes sense. Do you have any specific ideas? Xiao Yu said, my lord, I feel that the best method is to let the Faceless' operation succeed, and you also happen to appear in front of the Faceless with a sufficient alibi. Of course, this is just my idea. How to do it without arousing suspicion still needs careful planning. Well, that is indeed a good idea, Fang Hao nodded. The threat of the Faceless comes from the unknown in the shadows. If the goals of all Faceless could be determined, these guys wouldn't pose much of a threat. Fang Hao could use force to instantly suppress all of them, or directly kill them to eliminate future troubles. But they were like a swarm of mosquitoes in the dark, only biting you when you weren't paying attention. Although Fang Hao didn't think they were capable of killing him, he also didn't want to be targeted as a priority. Okay, I will arrange a better plan before the operation. Do you have any other news about the Faceless? Fang Hao continued to ask. Xiao Yu said, a few days ago, I attended a Faceless meeting with Rayleigh and found that the Faceless also have a certain hierarchical system. Each city has a leader who serves as the leader for distributing tasks and consolidating task information in that city, and this investigation of you was also proposed by this leader. Fang Hao listened silently, waiting for Xiao Yu to finish speaking. He only knew that the Faceless was an intelligence organization that infiltrated all walks of life, but he didn't really know much about the internal situation, and what Rebecca's side investigated would not be revealed to him. So the hierarchy, leader, and method of issuing tasks that Xiao Yu mentioned were all things he was hearing for the first time. Is the leader Rayleigh? Fang Hao asked. Xiao Yu shook her head. No, Rayleigh is just one of the members. After the meeting ended, I tracked this leader. His carriage entered the City Lord's mansion, so it can be confirmed that he is someone from within the City Lord's mansion. This, the core of power in Lysis City, and the leader of the Faceless, were actually both in the City Lord's mansion. This news greatly surprised Fang Hao, but also felt reasonable. Can their identity be confirmed? Fang Hao continued to press. It cannot be confirmed at the moment. The other party is very secretive. After entering the City Lord's mansion, I lost track of the target, so I haven't found out their real identity yet, Xiao Yu said somewhat awkwardly. There were not as few people in the City Lord's mansion as imagined. The City Lord's family, various guards and servants, the number of people was also very large. It was difficult to determine the other party's identity based on inference. Oh, right, you said last time that a high-ranking Faceless would be coming. Have they arrived? Fang Hao suddenly remembered that Xiao Yu had said last time that a high-ranking Faceless would be coming. Not yet. The time of their arrival is still uncertain, but from the content of Rayleigh and the others' conversation, it can be seen that they attach great importance to this person, and they even have the ability to change the current situation in Lysis City and bring them greater benefits and security, Xiao Yu continued to say. Okay, notify me immediately if you have any information, and also pay attention to your own safety. Fang Hao was actually still quite interested in this foreign Faceless. Being able to make the local Faceless so important. They were probably also a hero-level figure. The hostility shown by the Faceless towards transmigrators, even though he was very safe now, still made him have to take it seriously. There was basically no way for the two sides to coordinate and coexist anymore. It was just a matter of seeing who would be the first to act and break the facade. "Oh, okay, my lord. You also be careful." After Xiaoyu finished speaking, her body scattered like ink and disappeared into the darkness. In Lysis City, Fang Hao was not worried about his own safety. As long as the city lord's mansion didn't want to, eliminate him. With Dimitarja and Rolana present, some assassination attempts were enough to guarantee his safety. The next day, Fang Hao took Anjia and swaggered around the city for another day. At dusk, as expected, a message came from the city. Lord's mansion. It was still that personal maid of Rebecca's, who casually walked into Fang Hao's room. "Mr. Fang Hao, this is from the lady." After saying that, she handed over a map. Fang Hao took it and checked the location on the map. It was still a relatively hidden place outside the city. That made sense. Since they were setting up an ambush, it was impossible for it to be somewhere within the city. Obviously, outside the city was more suitable for them to set up. "Okay, I understand. Tell Lady Rebecca that we will leave the city ourselves this time, and she doesn't need to arrange a guide for us." Fang Hao put away the map in his hand. "Okay, sir, I will convey it truthfully," the city lord's mansion maid replied softly, after sending the maid away. Fang Hao looked at the map in his hand, thinking about his strategy. This operation was undoubtedly a trap set by the Faceless. Although he had already received the news, Rebecca was still unaware. Next, he would put on a show with the cooperation of the unaware Rebecca to make the Faceless exclude him. Evening, 9 o'clock. The carriage arrived at the bustling streets of the XC district. By this time, it was already getting late, but there were still quite a few people wandering the streets. Pulling back the carriage curtain, Fang Hao's gaze fell on a building named Pink Fox. This was a very famous tavern under Rayleigh. In the modern world, it could be called an entertainment establishment. Alcohol was only a small part of the store's income, with more coming from prostitution, gambling, and underground boxing rings. Fang Hao and Anjia got out of the carriage and swaggered onto the streets of the XC district. This entire street was under Rayleigh's control. In front of some closed shops stood some scantily clad women, leaning against the wall, waiting for business. Just 2 steps into the street, a woman walked directly over. "Sir, do you want a woman? We have all ages, and I can definitely make you feel good." This time, coupled with this location, it was the time for this kind of business. Fang Hao didn't stop walking, but the woman still followed closely behind. She kept chattering. "Sir, we have all ages, and there are also those delicate young ladies from noble families. I guarantee you'll be satisfied, and the price is not expensive. From 50 gold coins to 500 gold coins, you can choose then." Fang Hao ignored her, and instead put his arm around Anjia's waist, continuing to walk forward with long strides. This action also showed his meaning. The woman pouted and didn't continue to follow Fang Hao. Anjia was hugged by Fang Hao. She didn't resist, but instead, like a big sister, put her arm around his shoulder. "It's okay, I'm here. They won't force you." Then thank you." Fang Hao felt the softness coming from her shoulder. Their intimate actions did prevent the women on both sides of the street from approaching. They arrived at the entrance of the Pink Fox Tavern. A little girl walked over. "Sir, buy a bouquet of flowers for your wife." Fang Hao looked at the girl, who was only about 1 meter and 2 centimeters tall, dressed very simply, and asked, "How much?" "1 silver coin, sir." Fang Hao took out a silver coin from his pocket, put it in the girl's hand, and casually took a bouquet of flowers from the basket and handed it to Anjia. Anjia took the flowers, looked at them casually. "You're not trying to butter me up, are you? Besides, I don't like this stuff. It can't be eaten." Fang Hao rolled his eyes at her, telling her not to always say strange things. Entering the Pink Fox Tavern, they were met with a burst of noise. Upon entering, there were dense tables, and in front of the tables was a stage built with wood. The stage, scantily clad young women twisted their bodies freely, intentionally or unintentionally revealing their private parts to the guests below. Making the already drunk guests' faces flush red, they clapped loudly, wishing they could spend all the money in their hands here. Fang Hao tightened his grip around. Anjia's waist, and some of the approaching women also wisely stopped their steps, turning to find new customers. The two walked all the way to the stairs. Pink Fox Tavern. 2nd floor is the casino, 3rd floor is the prostitution business, and the basement is the hidden boxing ring, which is the legendary gambling arena. Winning means getting rich overnight, losing means losing your life. "Sir, this area is not open to the public." 2 burly guards blocked Fang Hao's way down to the basement. By the stairs, 2 burly men blocked their path. One hand pulled open the lapel of their coat, revealing a short sword tucked into their waist, a clear warning. Fang Hao glanced down the stairs and casually said, "What, is the fight club closed today, or is Laylee not planning to do business anymore?" Hearing the young man in front of them directly call out Laylee's name, the two exchanged strange glances, feeling that this person might not be an ordinary patron looking for fun. Their tone became a bit more polite. "Sir, the fight club is certainly Open, but you need a pass to enter. Fang Hao waved his hand, looking impatient. He said, "Go tell your manager that my name is Fang Hao, and I'm very rich. I plan to go down to the fight club and have some fun. Tell him to get me a pass." The two guards exchanged glances, both somewhat confused and bewildered. Fang Hao? They hadn't heard of such a person in the city, but his tone was quite arrogant. He expected to enter the underground arena just by mentioning his name, but seeing Fang Hao's strong demeanor, they were also afraid of truly neglecting a big shot. They quickly said, "Sir, please wait a moment. I'll go inform the manager." Go quickly, go quickly. The guard gave the other a look, then hurried upstairs. 3rd floor, private room. Laylee sat on the sofa, enjoying the tender and passionate service of the woman, Deborah. Just as the two were getting passionate, there was a rapid knocking sound on the door. Thump, thump, thump. "What is it?" Laylee's tone was somewhat displeased. He hated being disturbed at a crucial moment. If the other party didn't have a reason that satisfied him, they would have to pay the corresponding price. The door opened, and they saw Legu accompanying a subordinate, walking in. The subordinate greedily glanced at the woman beside Laylee and said in a hurried tone, "Boss, there's a young man and woman on the 1st floor who want to enter the underground fight club. We stopped them, but he said his name is Fang Hao, and that mentioning his name would allow him to go down." The subordinate's tone was very anxious, somewhat incoherent, but everyone present understood the meaning. A hint of doubt also flashed in Laylee's eyes. "What did you say his name was?" "He's called Fang Hao. I don't know which family's young master." "He is. He has black hair and is with a beastkin girl." Confirming the identity, Laylee's brow furrowed even deeper. He naturally knew who Fang Hao was. Tonight was their operation targeting Fang Hao. However, he never expected that Fang Hao would suddenly come here and even want to enter the underground fight club. Laylee looked at Legu and asked directly, "Is that place ready?" "It's ready, boss." Laylee was silent for a moment, then said to the waiting subordinate, "Get him a pass and arrange for someone to keep a close eye on him. When he leaves, and who he interacts with, make sure to watch him closely." "Oh, okay, boss." The subordinate agreed and left the room, rushing downstairs. The door of the room closed again. Laylee sat on the sofa, frowning, thinking about the problem. After a few days of investigation, he also began to suspect that it was Fang Hao's team that was helping Rebecca. But the news had already been secretly leaked to the city lord's mansion. If it was Fang Hao, then he shouldn't be appearing here. But he did appear. Could it be that it really isn't him? Laylee began to doubt his previous conjecture. Boss, could it be that it's always his subordinates carrying out the actions? Legu raised his doubts. Laylee felt that there was some truth to that. That kid was fair and delicate, and he acted very ostentatiously. It was indeed possible that he wouldn't participate in combat. "Has someone been arranged to monitor Fang Hao's residence?" Laylee continued to ask. "Don't worry, boss. Someone has already been arranged to monitor his residence, let alone people. Not even a fly can get out." Laylee nodded with satisfaction. Today was the day to verify whether he was the one helping Rebecca. Let's go. Let's go down and see what this kid is here to do." After speaking, he got up and led a few people out. Fang Hao waited downstairs for a little while. The guard who had gone upstairs to report came rushing down. He quickly said, "Sir, please come in. This is your number tag. After entering the fight club, you can use the number tag to place bets. I wish you a pleasant time." The guard's attitude had done a 180-degree turn. His body was constantly bowed, more respectful and humble than towards a noble lord. Fang Hao casually took the number tag, which had a 72 written on it in red paint. "Okay, you continue with your work." Fang Hao took Anjia and walked directly down the stairs. Laylee's casino was still very well defended. Going down the stairs, they were checked 4 times to confirm their identity information. Only after the last 2 guards checked the information on the wooden tag did they make way and allow the 2 to enter the fight club. The lighting was no longer dim. 4 large luminous stone chandeliers illuminated the entire basement. The air was filled with the stimulating scent of herbs and a faint smell of blood. "Kill him! Kill him! Damn it! All my money is on you! Get up, you piece of trash!" Attack. His lower body, kick him to pieces. The basement space was vast. In the center was a boxing ring surrounded by a barrier. In addition to the first level, there was also a second level of space, consisting of private rooms set up around the ring. On the ring, 2 strong men covered in blood, bare-chested, were entangled in a fight, and below the stage, cheers and shouts of encouragement also rang out. They were loudly cheering for the target they had bet on. Fang Hao and Anjia were also seeing this kind of scene for the first time, and paused at the stairs for a while. Just as the 2 paused, a graceful woman walked over. She smiled and said, "Sir, madam, please show me your number tag." Fang Hao casually handed the number 74 tag into the woman's hand. The latter glanced at the number on it. "Sir, please follow me. Your seats are over here." Saying that, she led Fang Hao and Anja towards the public viewing area. It seemed the number on the tag corresponded to the seating location. In addition to the public seats set up around the central ring, there were also many private rooms on the higher level. Are those private rooms open to the public? Fang Hao continued to ask. Yes, sir. The price for a private room is 5 gold coins per hour, and you can watch the matches better. The woman turned back and explained with a smile. It seemed that if she sold a private room, she would also get a good commission. Open one. Do I pay now? Fang Hao said. The woman's smile grew wider, and her tone became softer. Even with Anjia by his side, it didn't prevent the woman from flirting with the handsome and wealthy man in front of her. No need, sir. I will record it, and you can settle the bill when you leave. Okay, then take us up. Okay, sir and madam. Please follow me. The woman finished speaking and walked ahead to lead the way. Along the way, Fang Hao also learned some of the rules here from the woman. On the ring, there were 2 rules: barehanded combat and armed combat. Once on the ring, you signed a life and death waiver, and there was no responsibility even if you killed someone. And the lords and ladies below the stage sometimes preferred to watch such violent scenes. The rules for victory, besides knocking out or killing the opponent, had no constraints on rounds or scoring. It was simply about who stood on the ring longer, and this cruel form of competition could better stimulate the fighting spirit of some combatants. Killing the opponent in a desperate counterattack was also very common, making it highly watchable. They ascended to the second floor of the basement. The woman opened a private room and continued, Sir, complimentary drinks and pastries are provided here. Items on the price list need to be purchased separately. You can place bets on the people in the ring. Besides guessing who wins, you can also guess how long a fighter lasts and the number of times they defeat an enemy. Okay, then I'll bet 100 gold on the red side to win. Fang Hao didn't believe that Lei Li hadn't arranged for someone to monitor him. Since he had come to the underground fight club, he naturally had to show some characteristics of a gambler. Not betting at all would make Lei Li suspicious. When the woman heard Fang Hao's words, the smile on her face grew even wider. As she took the money, her finger lightly brushed against Fang Hao's hand. I hope you guessed correctly, sir. If I win, remember to come back for a tip. Oh, thank you, sir. As she left, she didn't forget to remind him, Sir, if you need any help, remember to call me. The woman displayed flirtatiousness, and Fang Hao naturally understood the underlying meaning. Here, women actively trying to please wealthy guests naturally wouldn't mind providing some special services. Helping guests relax, finding men here earned more and was faster than standing on the street outside the door. The woman left, and only the 2 of them remained in the room. Anjia began to eat the complimentary pastries. Fang Hao also came to the window of the private room and watched the bloody and cruel battle below. People in the stands were cheering with excitement, shouting. Slogans like, kill him, tear him apart. The location of the private room was excellent. Besides being a separate room, it also served to protect privacy. He could see the entire ring and the spectators around it, but the people below couldn't see him. In the several private rooms opposite, the lights weren't on, so it seemed they hadn't been sold today. Anja, eat less, don't need to go to the bathroom later. If anyone comes in, wake me up immediately. When they came, Fang Hao had already told her their purpose. Anja nodded. Okay, I understand. Fang Hao lay down on the long sofa, resting his head on Anjia's thigh. Even if someone was monitoring from outside, they would only think the 2 were engaged in some intimate actions. After getting ready, Fang Hao directly used Divine Presence. The next second, the skeletal gray sparrow left at the residence had its eye sockets ignited with a deep blue, Yulan, deep blue soul fire. It flapped its wings twice and disappeared into the night, outside Lys's city in a dark cave. Dimitega led his team, hidden in the cave, everyone silently eating the food in their hands, waiting for the next course of action. Just then, a skeletal gray sparrow flew directly into the cave. It spoke, Dimitega, is everyone ready? Hearing the voice, everyone's expression instantly became serious. Dimitega immediately replied, Sir, everyone is ready. There are 72 people here, ready to depart at any time. For this operation, Dimitega had quietly left the city alone during the day, and in the Grizzly Bear Stockade, they also received Fang Hao's instructions. The bandit Ming Lang, with 70 bandits, had come to this cave, waiting for Fang Hao to give them news. Fang Hao naturally didn't fully trust these bandits, but with Dimitega leading the team, there would basically be no problems. Fang Hao nodded, still instructing. Everyone is to follow Dimitega's command. After eliminating the enemy target, search the building briefly and leave before the city guards arrive. Be careful when retreating, and don't be followed. Okay, understood, sir, Dimitega said. Don't worry, Lord. We will follow Commander Dimitega's orders. Ming Lang and the others also quickly replied, Good! Then everyone follow me and let's go. Everyone followed Fang Hao out of the cave. Under the hazy moonlight, they moved quickly through the darkness. They walked for about 20 minutes. Ahead, a brightly lit manor appeared. Outside the manor, the figures of patrolling guards could vaguely be seen. By the firelight, they could see the mercenary group emblem pinned to the guards' chests. It seemed the faceless ones had paid to hire some mercenaries to act as bait here, but that was no longer important. Even if there were no faceless ones inside, and it was just an empty manor, they still had to capture it and kill everyone inside. Fang Hao looked at the manor and continued, "Pay attention to the surroundings and don't leave any traces." "Understood, sir." Dimitega agreed and began to assign tasks to everyone. When everything was ready, everyone began to approach the manor under the cover of night. Soon, a thick fog enveloped the entire manor. Underground fight club. In another private room, the woman who had led Fang Hao was standing in the private room, somewhat uneasy, her legs trembling uncontrollably. In front of her were Layli, the owner of the fight club, Deborah, and the enforcer, Legu. Any one of these three could decide her life or death. Where did that Fang Hao sit? Layli sat imposingly, asking in a deep voice. The woman's face instantly paled. "Boss, he went to private room 202. "Oh? Went to a private room?" Layli stroked his chin and continued. "What did he say to you? Tell me everything. Don't miss a single word." The woman swallowed hard, recalling what Fang Hao had said to her. When he came down, he asked about the price of the private rooms, and then he asked about the rules of the fight club and how to bet on fights. That's all. "That's it?" Layli frowned. That's all. He looked like he was here for the first time, didn't know anything about this place, and didn't ask about anything else," the woman said in a hurried tone. "All right, you can go out." "Yes, boss." The woman agreed and directly withdrew. Silence returned to the room. Layli pondered whether Fang Hao's arrival here was a coincidence. After a moment of thought, Layli lightly patted the buttocks of the seductive woman Deborah beside him. "Didn't you think highly of that kid? You're free today. Why don't you go have some fun with him and enjoy yourself?" "Bah!" Deborah lightly spat, laughing and scolding. "What do you mean I think highly of him? It's all for you. Go quickly and find out his intentions." "I don't know what kind of fetish you have. Always sending your woman to other men. Ha ha ha. Don't you like it too?" Outside the city, the manor, that dense mist quickly covered the entire manor. The bright torches also slowly extinguished after touching the mist. How did such a thick fog appear? What on earth is happening? Everyone was in a panic, and Dimitar also took advantage of the cover of the mist, quickly leading his men into the manor. They started fighting with the members of the mercenary group. There weren't many mercenaries to begin with, and they were faceless. Bait to lure Fang Hao. Within a few minutes, the guards outside the building were completely wiped out by Dimitar's men. The outer area was cleared. Dimitar directly pushed open the door of the residence. Swish! The moment the door opened, an arrow shot out right behind it. Dimitar tilted his head slightly, easily dodging it. Inside the room, there were still 6 mercenaries remaining. They gathered together, forming their final defensive formation. In the center of the formation stood a red-haired man holding a longsword and wearing heavy armor. The red-haired man stared coldly at Dimitar. Seeing the thick tail exposed behind him, his eyes also flickered slightly. "Lizard men?" He began to recall when exactly he had made an enemy of this lizard man that would cause the other party to launch an attack on his mercenary group in the middle of the night. After thinking it over, he couldn't find any memory related to lizard men. He said coldly, "Who are you, sir? It seems we haven't offended you. Is there some misunderstanding?" The current situation no longer allowed them to pursue who was right or wrong. Only by resolving this conflict could their remaining 6 members survive. Dimitar, with a pair of vertical pupils, coldly scanned the few people. "Tell me, who did you take the mission from?" Dimitar asked. The red-haired man's brows furrowed slightly as if he had thought of something. It seemed these people weren't targeting him, but were looking for the people who hired him. "If I tell you, will you let us leave?" "An interesting piece of information for the lives of the 6 of us. It's a good deal," the red-haired man continued. "Apart from confidential information received from the mission hall, for missions received from individuals, it was difficult for mercenaries to keep secrets, but they had to confirm the terms of exchange before they could tell the other party." He thought the lizard man would agree, but the lizard man in front of him shook his head and directly ordered, "Kill everyone." A large number of people rushed in from behind, and without a word, they began to surround and kill the 6 people. In less than 10 minutes, they had killed all of them, leaving no one alive. "Search this place, then prepare to leave." Dimitar continued to order, and everyone started searching again. They had to leave before the city guards arrived. Fang Hao ended his divine descent and woke up in the private room. He was still lying on Angia's lap. And Angia had placed some pastries and fruit platters directly on his belly, watching over him while eating. Seeing Fang Hao wake up, Jia asked curiously, "How was it?" "The matter is resolved. We'll sit for a while longer and then leave." Fang Hao took the various snacks off his belly. "Ah, leaving so soon?" Her big eyes rolled around and she continued, "How about I go down and fight a couple of matches to earn some money for us? I don't think they're very good." Don't even think about it. How can a casino let customers win? Once you show how good you are, those people will arrange new opponents. It's all set up," Fang Hao said directly. "Besides, even if he arranges more people, they can't beat me. What else can he do?" Jia said unconvinced. Fang Hao still shook his head. "Let's be careful this time and not attract too much attention." Seeing that Fang Hao wouldn't agree no matter what, Jia had no choice. She could only pout and continue eating the free pastries. Knock, knock, knock! Just as the two of them were sitting for a while and planning to leave, the door was knocked. On again. "Come in!" The door opened and the previous woman came in again, forcing a slightly stiff smile. "Sir, you guessed correctly in the previous match. Do you still need to place a bet?" "Bet. All the remaining money. Bet on the red side, eh?" "To win," Fang Hao continued. "Okay, sir. Your principal and winnings from before total 140 gold, all of which have been bet on the red side for you," the woman said respectfully. "All right. Okay, I won't disturb you and the lady," the woman said, backing out little by little. "But the Docker didn't close." A slender white finger reached in just before it closed. Immediately after, the door opened. A slightly seductive woman walked in. "Deborah." "Mr. Fang Hao, is it convenient for me to come in and sit for a while?" Deborah's voice carried a hint of charm. Fang Hao also recognized Deborah, the woman beside Rayleigh. From Xiao Yu's mouth, Fang Hao also learned some things about Deborah. Rayleigh's woman, and also Rayleigh's capable subordinate. Along with Lai Go, they were Rayleigh's left and right hands. She would often accompany some nobles and extract information from them. It could be said that she was a master at dealing with men. "Oh, Miss Deborah, I didn't expect to meet you here. It's quite a surprise." Fang Hao showed a smile, his mind beginning to speculate on her intentions. It was good that she came. The matter was already done. Deborah being here also proved that he had no connection to the battle outside the city. "Oh my, I didn't expect Mr. Fang Hao to know me. It's truly delightful," Deborah said sweetly, gently closing the door and sitting down on the sofa. "Ha ha ha, which man in the city doesn't know Miss Deborah's name?" Fang Hao continued to ask curiously. "So, are you also interested in fighting?" "These are all things you men like. How could I like these?" Deborah glanced at Fang Hao with a slightly charming look and continued. "Today, I was just watching the shop, heard you came, so I decided to come and see you." As she spoke, she moved closer to Fang Hao. Fang Hao had also heard that Deborah was very open-minded. For men she liked, she would even be very proactive. Could it be that she was interested in him? Is this boxing gym Miss Deborah's property? "That's amazing," Fang Hao said, pretending to be surprised. "Oh my, it's not mine. It's Boss Rayleigh's. I don't have that ability," Deborah said softly. A fragrant scent wafted into Fang Hao's nose. Deborah was indeed beautiful and very skilled at provoking men, but Fang Hao wasn't very interested in her. This kind of woman, who also had a close relationship with the faceless, he didn't dare to actually have anything with her. He shifted his butt slightly to the other side, creating some distance. He said to Deborah, "That's not necessary. We'll be leaving after sitting for a while." Deborah raised an eyebrow. She hadn't expected Fang Hao to refuse her. Her eyes rolled, and she continued, "I see Mr. Fang Hao is a bit tired. I know some massage techniques. Let me give you a massage to loosen up your muscles and bones." It seemed that Deborah had received instructions from Rayleigh to inquire about his information, and he also needed Deborah to be here, waiting for the news from the manor outside the city to reach Rayleigh's ears to achieve the effect he wanted. After understanding, he lazily lay down on the long sofa. "Then I'll trouble Miss Deborah." "It's nothing," Deborah said, and knelt beside him, gently massaging Fang Hao's back. And Jia sat on the side, watching Deborah the whole time, seeing that she was just an ordinary woman and not dangerous. She didn't pay too much attention. Deborah massaged and said, "Mr. Fang Hao, did you come from outside the city? I heard that the north of Prul City is all orc territory. You don't live in an orc city, do you?" Fang Hao didn't look at her, but he knew she was trying to get information about him. "The place we live is a place where humans and orcs live together," Fang Hao replied. "Oh, those orcs," Deborah said halfway, her gaze falling on the orc girl beside her, and she immediately changed the subject. "I heard that you designed a lot of clothes for Lady Rebecca. When will you design a few sets for—" "Me too? Any time is fine. So, you and Lady Rebecca are quite familiar then?" "Not familiar, but she did order several clothes for me. I can't help it. I have to travel all the way here." "That's true." The two chatted for 20 minutes. Deborah was probing Fang Hao for information, and Fang Hao also obtained some things he wanted through her words. Rayleigh's methods were indeed clever. This boxing gym was not just a place for ordinary gambling. Nobles from the city, and even further cities, would come here for entertainment. They could even use some insignificant small tricks to make their money cleaner. This also meant that Rayleigh must have connections with many nobles. No wonder no one in the city could bring him down. Mr. Fang Hao, we can change direction now. Deborah spoke again. Fang Hao also obediently turned over, changing from a prone position to lying on his back. I heard there are quite a few bandits outside the city. Was the caravan safe along the way? Deborah continued to ask casually. Fang Hao smiled. Don't be afraid of bandits. I also have a mercenary group responsible for escorting missions. Oh, so your mercenary group is very powerful then. It's all right. Not many people. Just responsible for safety. Can't do anything else. Fang Hao answered casually. The two chatted casually. They were both trying to get information from each other while analyzing the truthfulness in their minds. They had learned pretty much what they needed to know. Deborah said seductively. So, how about we take it a step further and relax? Knock, knock, knock. There was a light knocking sound outside the door. The next second, the door opened and the woman walked in. She lowered her head, not looking at the scene inside, and said directly, Sir, this is the 450 gold coins you won. Miss Deborah, Boss Rayleigh is here and has asked for you. Hearing this, Deborah's expression changed slightly. Rayleigh was calling her back. It seemed something had happened. Her expression remained unchanged. She put on her clothes again and, without minding the woman next to her, she said to Fang Hao, Oh my, Rayleigh is here. Next time when he's not around, I'll come and keep you company. After speaking, she gave him a wink and strode out of the room. Fang Hao looked at the woman and also said, Keep betting. I'll be leaving after 2 more rounds. Okay, sir. The woman backed out again. Inside the room, only Fang Hao and Anjia remained. Why are you so slow? Look, her man is back, right? Anjia looked like she was disappointed in him. Ah, is this my fault too? Fang Hao was putting on his clothes. She came to you and you couldn't even handle it. She was sent by Rayleigh to test us if we really did something. It would be easy to make a mistake. Fang Hao explained in a low voice. Fang Hao looked at his watch. From the end of his divine descent until Deborah left. It took a total of 23 minutes, which was faster than the speed at which the message from the manor outside the city was sent. Back. It was very likely that the Faceless had some special way of transmitting information. It shouldn't be sound transmission shells, otherwise it wouldn't have taken 23 minutes. Oh, really? Anjia put the snacks from her mouth aside and pushed Fang Hao away. I'll massage you, I can do these too. She wiped her small hands on herself and placed them directly on Fang Hao's chest, starting to massage 1 stroke at a time. No, Anjia, are you kneading dough? What, is something wrong? Anjia didn't feel any difference between her technique and that woman's. I feel like you're not treating me like a living person. In another private room, Deborah hurried back. Opening the door, she saw a short-haired, mustachioed man standing in the middle with a serious expression. Deborah also knew this person. He was the one assigned to monitor the manor outside the city. Deborah frowned and asked, What's wrong? The city lord's army has been dispatched and has directly surrounded the manor outside the city, the mustachioed man said. Deborah glanced at Rayleigh beside her. She continued to ask, What's the origin of those people? Have you found out? We've been monitoring the manor, but when the battle happened, the manor was shrouded in a mist, and we couldn't see the identities of the other party. We could only confirm that there were quite a few of them, at least 70 or 80 people. The man lowered his head and replied softly, Didn't you follow them? We did, but halfway through they scattered and ran in the forest. It's a bit like the cracking the whip tactic of bandits. So, you lost them. What a bunch of useless people. Spent so much effort and didn't find out anything. Deborah cursed angrily. All right, you can go down. Tell those brothers to come and get their money tomorrow. Rayleigh waved his hand and said, Yes, boss. The man agreed, backing out little by little. Rayleigh looked at Lai Gu. Is there any movement at his place? No, that kid's mercenary group hasn't moved. A few people are drinking in the tavern and are also under our surveillance, Lai Gu replied. Rayleigh nodded. It's not a complete loss. At least we know it wasn't this kid. The next day. As soon as Fang Hao opened his eyes, he found Anjia sleeping soundly beside his pillow. She was hugging Fang Hao's waist tightly with her upper body, and perhaps dreaming of something. She occasionally stuck out her little tongue, licking Fang Hao's arm repeatedly. Smacking her lips, she mumbled, So fragrant. Damn it! Fang Hao cursed inwardly. Isn't this going to kill an old man? Anjia's stamina was arguably much greater than Fang Hao's. They had been at it all night, like a madwoman with no end. Don't be fooled by Anjia's fierce boasts, saying things like, This old lady can do anything, I'll make you feel so good, spouting nonsense. When the time came, she showed confusion and forced bravado. It took them a great deal of effort to finally connect. He gently patted Anjia's perky little butt twice and then pinched the little tongue she had stuck out. Only then did this. Lazy Lump slightly opened her eyes. Tui, are you sick? Why are you pinching my tongue? And Jia glared, saying angrily, Get up. What time is it and you're still sleeping? Fang Hao said with a smile. Oh, Anjia replied, her small eyes occasionally glancing at Fang Hao. Last night had brought the two of them closer, and Jia's loyalty had also increased from 98% to 100%. Fang, Anjia, your loyalty has reached 100 points, and you will not be affected by any negative status effects such as counter-espionage or betrayal. Previously, Anjia had been forced by Fang Hao to sign a hero contract, requiring her to obey Fang Hao's commands in certain matters. But as time went on, Anja also began to develop some special feelings for Fang Hao. Anja came from an orc city, and Fang Hao was the cleanest male she had ever seen, and he didn't have that unpleasant smell on him. In addition, his character and abilities were also seen by Anjia. Apart from not being able to fight and being too delicate, he had no other shortcomings. She had always been aware of the little interactions between Fang Hao and Ye. Last night, she tried it herself. It felt quite good. Getting out of bed and putting on her clothes, Anjia opened the door with a bang and walked straight out. Close the door, Anjia, Fang Hao shouted while pulling up his pants. Anjia swaggered out of the room. In the courtyard, the maids and the little brown bear greeted her one after another. Good morning, Miss Anja. Morning, Anjia. No one showed any surprise at Jia staying overnight in Fang Hao's room. In the eyes of most people, it would have been strange if nothing had happened between the two of them. Here, for someone of Fang Hao's age with great power, it was natural that he would have quite a few women around him. Even the rabbit maids were privately discussing how to attract the handsome master. And Jia's expression remained unchanged. While putting on her coat, she nodded casually, saying, You're all up so early? Yes, Miss Anjia. Everyone responded one by one. After breakfast, Fang Hao took Anjia to his cloth shop. Today was the opening day of the cloth shop. At the entrance of the shop, model photos of Rebecca and Lorana had already been hung up. The large canvases allowed everyone to clearly see the two people in the pictures from a distance. It was still morning, but the front of the cloth shop was already filled with residents, who came to join in the excitement. Only a few had entered the shop, while more people were still looking around outside. They were talking in low voices. Isn't that Lady Rebecca? I didn't hear that the city lord's mansion was opening a cloth shop. Since Lady Rebecca's portrait is out, it should have something to do with the city lord's mansion. Come on, look at the name, Bone Cloth Shop. How could it be opened by the city lord's mansion? Bone Cloth Shop? The clothes the priests in the temple are wearing now are from the Bone Cloth Shop. So this Bone Cloth Shop is really impressive. Both the city lord's mansion and the temple wear. They're clothes. I just don't know about the price. Yeah, I hope it's not too expensive. Let's go in and take a look. It doesn't cost anything to look. The city was basically divided into two types of people. One type were the influential and powerful, who had a certain amount of capital and paid more attention to fashion and brands. The noble ladies would take Rebecca's clothing as a fashion benchmark and imitate it, and Rebecca's advertisement just met the demands of these people. The second type were the ordinary residents of the city, who were more concerned with practicality and price. The fact that both the city lord's mansion and the temple wore clothes from the cloth shop provided credibility to the public. If the price was right, they would also choose to buy here. Therefore, Fang Hao's Bone Cloth Shop simultaneously met the demands of both the powerful and the common people. It was enough to compete head-on with the established cloth shops in the city. It might even surpass them. Soon, people walked into the shop one after another and began to choose the clothes they liked. Even some elegantly dressed noble ladies entered the shop and began to inquire about custom tailoring requirements and methods. Fang Hao stood in the crowd and watched for a while, seeing that things were going smoothly. He left the place with satisfaction. It was still early. Fang Hao and Anjia took a carriage and went to the task hall again. The DC area was still very lively. A large number of mercenary teams gathered here to sell and exchange materials and equipment they had. However, since it was still daytime, there weren't as many people selling goods as there were at night. Fang Hao took Anjia out of the carriage and walked into the task hall with a swagger. The hall was filled with mercenaries waiting to accept tasks and settle accounts. Fang Hao went to the counter and said, I'm from the Windmill Mercenary Group. I'm here to see if there are any suitable tasks. After learning that the faceless man had become suspicious of him because of the mercenary group information, Fang Hao had arranged for someone to register a small mercenary group in advance. He would no longer use the name of his previous Bone Knight order, and would use the name Windmill Mercenary Group to accept tasks from now on. This would also give those people incorrect information. Fang Hao's mercenary group was just too small and not intentionally hidden by someone. Coupled with the alibi shown by Rayleigh yesterday, it was enough to confuse the other party for a while. At least for the next period of time, they would not suspect him. Okay, sir. The lady at the counter took out the task information and placed it in front of Fang Hao. Fang Hao quickly flipped through it. Task: escort merchant caravan out of the city, requires more than 30 people. Mercenary groups with good reputation are preferred. Settlement will be made on the spot upon arrival. No delays. Task: Coriola's family, hiring a sword teacher to teach the family's children sword fighting. Sword profession heroes are preferred for hire. Single page map. Bandit village. Task: clear out the bandit village north of the city. Fang Hao quickly flipped through and had already read the task information. They were still some ordinary tasks, either escorting merchant caravans or clearing out bandits. It wasn't that Fang Hao couldn't complete these, but Fang Hao still wanted to accept tasks that could yield treasure chest rewards. And not just to earn task rewards. He flipped through it again, but still didn't find anything he was satisfied with. It seemed that this time he would have to accept some tasks to clear out bandits, just as he was about to speak to accept a task. A voice suddenly came from behind him. "Mr. Fang Hao, Miss Angia, is that you?" Fang Hao turned his head and saw Eric, who had naturally curly hair and was a bit chubby. He was looking at him curiously. "It really is you, Mr. Fang Hao. I didn't expect to see you here," Eric said with a little excitement. As his mental power increased, Fang Hao's memory also improved greatly. With a slight recollection, he remembered the name and identity of this fat man. At the same time, he smiled and said, "Yes, I didn't expect to see Mr. Eric here either." "Yes, it's really a coincidence," Eric said, his eyes drifting again. "Oh, by the way, did you encounter any trouble after the last auction?" "Trouble?" Fang Hao looked puzzled. "Ha ha ha, it's good that you didn't. It's good that you didn't," Eric laughed awkwardly, knowing that he had said too much, and immediately changed the subject. "Brother Fang Hao, you really aren't leaving any room for us to survive. Not only did you open a cloth shop in Lich's City, but you also hired Lady Rebecca to advertise for you. How are we going to live from now on?" Eric was also a cloth merchant in the city, but his shop was not large and not as famous as the other few cloth shops. But Lich's City had a large population, which was enough to support cloth merchants like them. However, Fang Hao's actions made all the cloth merchants feel a sense of crisis. No one had been able to hire Rebecca to advertise for their shop. It was likely that the opening of the Bone cloth shop would directly take away more than half of the city's business. Look at what you're saying. The cloth shops in the city are old shops that have been operating for decades. How could I easily steal from them? Fang Hao waved his hand and said. Eric didn't say much more, but changed the subject and said, "Mr. Fang Hao, is the person the men's clothing in that portrait? Miss Lorana? I haven't heard from her for a long time since we parted last time." After the last auction, Eric had no news of Lorana. He even specially arranged for people to inquire in the city, but they couldn't find this person. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, as if this person had never appeared. This also made him feel a little anxious, as if a piece of cake that had been delivered to his mouth had suddenly disappeared. Until today, he saw the male model in the portrait. He recognized her as the Lorana he was looking for at a glance. If Fang Hao hadn't known about Lorana, he wouldn't have come up to say hello, considering Rayleigh was watching Fang Hao. Fang Hao looked at him strangely and said, "Why don't you just let it go? You haven't contacted each other for such a long time. I'm afraid she doesn't have any feelings for you. How could that be? You know the situation last time, don't you? It's just that girls are hesitant to speak. I should have been more proactive." Eric continued, "How about you tell me her address, and I'll treat you to a drink then." This isn't very good, is it? Randomly revealing someone's address might cause the other party to dislike you. Fang Hao hesitated and said it wasn't that he was refusing. If Lorana knew that he'd casually revealed her information to others, the little bit of loyalty he had painstakingly accumulated would probably decrease again. He would never do such a losing business. Hearing Fang Hao's words, Eric felt that there was some truth to it. After thinking for a moment, he said directly, "How about this? I'll write a letter and you can help me deliver it to Miss Lorana. This way, it won't count as revealing her information." "That's possible," Fang Hao agreed. Hearing Fang Hao agree, Eric's face immediately showed a happy smile. He was full of thanks, and he forgot that the two of them were competitors in the same industry. Eric was full of thanks, and seeing the task list in Fang Hao's hand, he realized the purpose of his trip. He suddenly said, "Mr. Fang Hao, are you also accepting mercenary tasks? I have a good task here. It's a task organized by the captain of the second team of the Dragon Scale Mercenary Group, exploring a ruin. I heard that the risk is not high and the reward is quite generous. I wonder if you are interested." Mercenary teaming up was not uncommon. Some important information and special locations could only be obtained with accurate news by large mercenary groups. Due to various reasons, these mercenary groups would also contact some familiar teams, or cooperate with a few other mercenary groups to explore together. At that time, the rewards would also be distributed according to the agreed-upon terms. Fang Hao didn't care about the reward he mentioned, but the words ruin certainly piqued Fang Hao's interest. Ruin? Yes, I am quite familiar with this, Captain. If you are interested, I can put in a good word for you. We can go together then, and we can look out for each other, Eric said. Clearly, Eric was returning the favor for delivering the message. Otherwise, a team formed by some internal people would really be hard to say whether the news would reach Fang Hao. Okay, I'm also looking for a suitable task. Since you have one, Eric, please introduce me. Fang Hao nodded and said, No problem. Let's go. I'll take you to register. We'll depart together then, Eric said, then led Fang Hao outside. Fang Hao followed Eric out of the task hall. They went directly to a tavern in the East City. At a table near the window sat a mercenary man wearing leather armor. Eric pulled Fang Hao to sit down at the table and said to the mercenary, Captain Primal, this is my friend Fang Hao. Not only is he a very famous businessman, but he also has a very powerful team under him. I heard that your team is short of people now, so I brought him here. Captain Primal looked at Fang Hao and Anjia, feeling that both of them were a bit too young, but he didn't say much and said, What's the name of your mercenary group and how many people do you have? I'll register you. Windmill Mercenary Group. 20 people under me, Fang Hao replied. Primal quickly recorded the name and said to Fang Hao, All right, the registration is complete. After the task is finished, each person will receive 5 gold coins. You can decide how to distribute it within your team. Any special gains will belong to our Dragon Scale Mercenary Group, but we will compensate you according to the price. We'll depart tomorrow morning. Don't forget the time. Fang Hao nodded, indicating that he understood. Just like that, the registration of the mercenary group was completed. After registering, Fang Hao and Eric ordered 3 beers at a nearby table. After chatting for a bit, Eric found paper and a pen and wrote a love poem for Lorana that looked so cheesy it gave him goosebumps. Fang Hao left the tavern with the love poem written by Eric. He took Anja and browsed the market, bought some rare materials, and then left by carriage. They returned to their residence. He didn't see Lorena either. The maid said she had gone out, but didn't know where. Fang Hao glanced at the love poem he brought back, pulled open a drawer, and put it away. It was probably for the best that she wasn't there. He wasn't sure if handing this love poem to Lorena would cause any unexpected situations. After dinner, the people from the clothing store and the hot pot restaurant also returned. Fang Hao briefly asked about the business in the stores, and they all returned to their rooms to rest, early the next morning. In the DC area, hundreds of fully armed mercenaries had already gathered at the city gate. Looking at the mercenary group logos on their chests, there were over a dozen mercenary groups, big and small. Fang Hao, with Anjia, Demitka, Grizzly Bear, and a group of subordinates, a total of 23 people, walked over. Among the mercenary groups, Fang Hao's group could be said to be the one with the fewest members. If it weren't for Eric's recommendation, Fang Hao's small team really wouldn't have been chosen by the Dragon Scale Mercenary Group. As soon as they approached the gathering point, they heard Eric shout, Fang Hao, over here, come this way. Looking in the direction of the sound, they saw Eric waving towards them on the right side of the mercenary formation. Eric's mercenary group didn't have many people either. Roughly looking, there were only over 50 people, which was also considered a normal-sized mercenary group. Among these 50-plus people, there were warriors, archers, and a few people carrying huge packages and emergency equipment, who should be logistics personnel. Fang Hao's side, of course, also brought supplies, but he had all put them into his storage space. No need for everyone to carry them. Fang Hao led his people towards Eric's group. Eric, are you going to the ruins too? Eric was wearing a linen robe with a set of leather armor over it. At his waist was a slender iron sword. He hadn't even started moving, but just standing there, he was already sweating profusely. Of course I'm going. And I've studied swordsmanship since I was a child. I just lack some practical experience. On the contrary, Mr. Fang Hao, can you do this? Eric patted the long sword at his waist and asked Fang Hao in return. Fang Hao looked at his pale, chubby, and weak body. He looked at Fang Hao in the same way, with thin arms and legs, and it was rumored that Fang Hao had a feminine personality. I've also practiced. Fang Hao also patted the light feather short sword at his waist. The two looked at each other, feeling that the other was a burden. Fortunately, there were many people on this mission, and the Dragon Scale Mercenary Group also said that the difficulty was low, and the money was easy to earn. Otherwise, Eric wouldn't have thought of participating in this operation. The two chatted for a couple of sentences. Eric's gaze was again attracted by Demitka behind Fang Hao. Demitka was indeed impressive, tall, with a full set of golden armor. Wherever he went, He was more likely to attract people's attention. "Who is this?" Eric asked again. "This is our vice captain, Dimitka. He is from the lizardman race," Fang Hao introduced softly. Dimitka also bowed in a friendly manner. "Mr. Eric. The lizardmans." Speech was a bit peculiar, but there was no problem with communication. "Hello, Mr. Dimitka." Eric also greeted him. Then, Eric pulled Fang Hao aside again. He asked somewhat impatiently, "How was it? Did you deliver the letter I gave you yesterday? What did Miss Lorena say?" Eric's face started to turn red and his eyes were full of anticipation. Fang Hao glanced at Eric. He didn't understand why he was so fixated on Lorena. Why pick on anyone else, but insist on repeatedly dancing on the edge of death? Once he made Lorena angry, his entire body fat wouldn't be enough for Lorena to extract oil from. "I returned so late, where would I have time to deliver it to her? I'll help you deliver it after I come back from the ruins, but let's be clear. I can't guarantee the outcome, and I feel that if the other party doesn't agree, it's best to just drop it," Fang Hao said quickly. "It's good that it wasn't delivered," Eric immediately said. "Huh?" Did he change his mind and realize that Lorena wasn't interested in him? Before Fang Hao could speak, Eric took out a new envelope from his pregnant and stuffed it into Fang Hao's hand. "The sentences I wrote yesterday weren't very complete, so I revised them overnight. Please tear up the previous one." Okay." Fang Hao took the new envelope and said subconsciously. After 6 o'clock, the team set off. The second team of the Dragon Scale mercenary group, with over 100 people, strode out of the city gate. Behind them were the teams of the various mercenary groups with no fixed formation. They just left the city in such a grand manner, chatting and following the team forward. Except for the Dragon Scale mercenary group, the organizer. The rest had no idea about the route and location of the ruins, and could only silently follow behind. The security around Lysa City was very good. The area outside the city had been carefully cleared by the army, and there were very few ferocious beasts and monsters. Even the previously rampant mountain bandits, after repeated encirclements and suppressions. Some died, some fled, and it was very difficult to encounter them. There was no danger along the way, and the atmosphere of the mercenary group was relatively relaxed. To ensure safety, Fang Hao also sent a message to Grizzly Bear Stockade during the journey, asking the 2 bone dragons to follow the team above the clouds. Once any danger occurred, they could also rescue Fang Hao and the others below. The team walked from morning until night, and everyone began to set up camp. Fang Hao's position was right next to Eric's team's camp. They set up tent after tent. They lit a bonfire, threw in a hot pot seasoning, and everyone started eating. Just as they started eating, Eric followed the smell and walked over. "Hot pot? How did you bring hot pot?" Eric's eyes widened as he exclaimed. The Lao De Shuang hot pot restaurant was very famous in the city. Most of the people present had eaten there. Especially Eric, who was fat and strong, naturally felt very familiar with this smell. "Well, I brought some. Sit down and eat with us." Fang Hao extended an invitation. This is too kind." Eric said he was embarrassed, but his body sat down directly. They put some meat slices and vegetables in the pot, and a few people started eating. After dinner, they arranged for people to stand guard, and Fang Hao also returned to his tent to rest. Now Angia and Fang Hao shared a tent. It could be considered close protection. The next day, the team continued to set off. Along the way, some following wild beasts appeared, as well as a few small-scale monster attacks. They marched for half a day. Finally, they reached the planned location. This was the ruins of a city. Most of the city walls had collapsed. Through the open city gate, one could see the collapsed houses and buildings inside the city. Ruined walls, beams growing new branches, tiles covered with a layer of green plants. In the desolation, there was also a hint of vitality. The buildings in the city were clear at a glance, and no dangerous targets were seen. "Are we there? Are there no enemies?" Eric also felt very curious and asked a mercenary next to him. The mercenary replied, "Isn't it good that there are no enemies? Just stroll around, and you can get 5 gold coins when you go back. What a great thing." Unlike Eric and Fang Hao's thoughts, the mercenaries didn't want to see any monsters. Instead, getting the corresponding reward after strolling around and going back was the best outcome. "That's true." Eric nodded in agreement. Everyone thought it was good, but the Dragon Scale mercenary group wasn't stupid. Why would they spend money to let them go shopping? Stopping in front of the city gate, Captain Primo of the Dragon Scale. Mercenary group shouted loudly to everyone. "All teams listen up and camp on the spot for 10 minutes. Take care of your business, check your equipment, and we'll be entering the dangerous zone soon." Hearing Primo's shout, everyone's expressions began to become tense. Although no one responded, the leaders of the various teams had already begun to urge their members to check their equipment, to avoid unnecessary losses during combat due to small matters. Hearing that a battle was about to begin, Eric's face flushed again, with a somewhat nervous and excited expression. Fang Hao, let's keep our small team close together so we can look out for each other. Eric's voice trembled slightly, and one hand rested on his long sword. Okay. Fang Hao did not refuse. His goal was the treasure chest in these ruins, and being able to support each other to make the mission easier was also a good thing. Soon, 10 minutes had passed. Captain Primo waved his hand, and the large team continued to advance. This time, there was no stop, and they directly passed through the city gate and entered the ruins. Due to Primo's earlier reminder, the atmosphere of the various mercenary groups was also a bit tense. No one was chatting or joking. Everyone drew their weapons and were vigilant about the surroundings. Squeak! Squeak! A strange cry sounded from the ruins. Some creatures resembling skinned monkeys, who knows where they came from, crouched on the broken walls, their eyes fixed on this suddenly appearing human team. Since the distance was not too far, Fang Hao looked at the monkeys, and a prompt instantly appeared. Ruin Ghoul, Tier 5. It was actually a Tier 5 creature. Among the unit types converted in the territory, Tier 5 was not considered high. But among this group of mercenaries, Tier 5 was already considered a relatively high level. Except for Demitka and Angia, the two heroes. Only Captain Primo of the second team reached Tier 7, and most of the remaining members were only Tier 3 to Tier 4. In a one-on-one situation, it was difficult to deal with this kind of monster. Ruin ghouls were like monkeys with albino skin. They had pointed ears and fangs, disproportionate facial features on their heads, and long, slender claws on their arms, which they used to prop themselves on the ground. A large, deformed tumor bulged from their backs like they were carrying a ragsack. Archers, clear the white-skinned monkeys on the surrounding ruins, Captain Primo ordered. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As the order was given, the sound of arrows piercing the air instantly rang out. Even melee units were mostly equipped with ranged weapons. They all drew their bows and arrows and began to shoot at the ruined ghouls around them. The ruined ghouls, attacked, let out terrifying howls. At the same time, more and more white-skinned monkeys appeared around them, and in the blink of an eye, there were 70 or 80 of them, and the number was still increasing. The next second, all the white-skinned monkeys began to attack the crowd. Pick up your weapons and protect yourselves. Form a circle. Damn it, my people are being dragged away by those monkeys. Damn it. These guys' blood is poisonous. Don't let it splash into your mouth or eyes. Damn it, their numbers are still increasing. The various mercenary groups seemed a bit chaotic. Fang Hao's team was right next to Eric's mercenary group. They formed a defensive circle and slashed at the attacking white-skinned monkeys. Except for Demitka and Angia, the other members were from mountain bandit backgrounds. They displayed a more ferocious fighting style than the white-skinned monkeys. Fang Hao did not cast spells, but simply drew the long sword from his waist. He hacked at the attacking monkeys. However, he was protected in the middle, so he didn't have many opportunities to attack. Fortunately, the large team had a numerical advantage. After leaving dozens of corpses, those white-skinned monkeys also chose to retreat, hiding far behind the ruins, continuing to look for opportunities. Taking advantage of this opportunity, everyone also began to recover their strength and take some antidote potions. Eric, are you all right? Fang Hao saw Eric, who was trembling a little next to him, and asked softly. I'm fine. One of the team members is injured and is being detoxified. Eric replied. Their two teams were acting together. The number of people was not large, but after the battle, the casualties were the fewest. This had a lot to do with the presence of the two heroes. Not only did they alleviate most of the pressure, but the heroes also provided many attribute bonuses. Everyone, cheer up and continue to advance. Seeing that the battle loss was not significant, Captain Primo ordered to continue to go deeper. Everyone guarded against the white-skinned monkeys following around them, kicked away the corpses under their feet, and continued to advance. Fang Hao and the others also followed and continued forward. Their eyes, however, fell on the surrounding buildings. He frowned. Some stone patterns and symbols were preserved on these buildings, always giving people a religious feeling. Could it be that this place was related to a temple again? Before Fang Hao could think too much, the team had already left this place and continued to go deeper into the ruined city. More and more monsters were lurking around, and it seemed that a second attack could be launched at any time. But Captain Primo was still leading the team to go deeper inside. This made Fang Hao have to think about the purpose of the Dragonscale mercenary group this time. The mission released by the Dragonscale mercenary group was kept secret. In other words, before coming here, all the mercenary groups below did not know the purpose and goal of this trip, and now the mercenary group was constantly going deeper inside instead of clearing the monsters around. It seemed that there was a fixed target. They should be taking some item, and they were very clear about the location of this item. After the mercenary group repelled 2 more waves of white-skinned monkey attacks, they finally approached the core building. This was a huge stone castle. The stone castle had already collapsed in many places, and the walls were covered with vines, but one could vaguely see various religious temple patterns and symbols as well, as some colored glass fragments. In front of the stone castle, a huge stone tablet stood. Primo stepped forward and cut away the vines covering the stone tablet, revealing the clear text on it, Cemetery of Glory. It really is here. Seeing the text on it, joy appeared on Primo's face. While the teams were directing their members, Fang Hao's attention was on the Dragon Scale mercenary group at the very front. When Primo pushed aside the vines, revealing the words on the stone tablet, Fang Hao could see clearly from a distance. Glory Cemetery. Seeing the name, he knew that behind the ancient castle was a cemetery. It was truly a grand undertaking to build a city into a cemetery. Even Rebecca of Lysis City didn't have this ability. He re-examined the towering ancient castle, confirming again the symbols and angel carvings left on the stone castle, and could also determine that this massive cemetery was built by the church. It was just unknown what happened. And it was eventually abandoned here, and the highest-ranking high priest in the Lysis City temple was just a level 10 elderly priest. This kind of glory and decline had a great sense of contrast, Fang Hao thought to himself. He saw the people of the Dragon Scale mercenary group gathered together, talking in low voices. This made Fang Hao doubt the purpose of the Dragon Scale mercenary group's trip again. It was obvious that the Dragon Scale mercenary group had a clear objective. It wasn't to clear out monsters, but to obtain something. But what could be in a cemetery? Burial objects? Very likely. All squads rest for 10 minutes. When we go in later, there might still be these white monkeys. Everyone check their equipment and exchange arrows with teams that are short, Primo said loudly. Everyone started resting again. And the people of the Dragon Scale mercenary group began searching the rooms inside the ancient castle. Fang Hao and the others sat directly on the ground. Eric came over again. There must be good things inside, and they'll all get them cheap. Do you know what they are looking for? Fang Hao asked curiously. I don't know, but relics like this can have a lot of good things. It's a pity we signed a contract, and all the spoils belong to them, alas, Eric said with some regret. Although the city had become a ruin, amidst the rubble and debris, many valuable items could still be found. Some noble collections, treasure, chests under the rubble. If you search carefully, you can even find the private money of former residents. Anything can be found in the ruins, and getting rich overnight often happens. Fang Hao and the others didn't move. They just sat together, drinking some water to recover their strength. From time to time, shouts of killing appeared inside the stone castle, indicating that there were still some hidden monsters in the rooms. But the Dragon Scale mercenary group didn't react much, so they should just be scattered enemies. Before long, all the spoils inside the stone castle were collected, piled up outside the stone castle. Fang Hao glanced casually, but didn't see the transmigrator's treasure chest. All right, there's one last stretch of road. Those who have rested, enough should set off as soon as possible to finish the battle before dark and leave this place, Captain Primo continued to say loudly. It seemed that the Dragon Scale mercenary group hadn't found what they were looking for inside the stone castle. Everyone got up and began to reform ranks and continue forward, passing through the abandoned stone castle. Behind it was a huge cemetery. This cemetery covered a vast area, and you could see flower beds and already broken stone statues. It was just that now. They were all covered by green plants and vines, a desolate scene. In the center of the cemetery were large areas of dense stone tablets. Some stone tablets were already broken, and some coffins had even collapsed, with flowers and plants growing. On the bones, crack! A crisp sound. A tombstone shattered in response, and a white-skinned monkey leaped up, squatting on the tombstone. The weathered tombstone directly cracked open. Immediately after, one white monkey after another emerged from various corners. Looking at them, their numbers far exceeded the number of mercenaries. The white monkeys watched the crowd from a distance, licking their shriveled lips with tongues like snake tongues. Gulp! The mercenaries present all swallowed their saliva in unison. Except for the people from the Dragon Scale mercenary group, everyone else had already started cursing. Didn't they say the mission was simple and the money was easy to earn? You damn it. Do you call this easy money? This must be a white monkey nest. Prepare for battle. Mercenary groups cover each other. Be careful not to injure your own people. At this time, Primo still issued the order to prepare for battle. All the teams were stunned. In this situation, shouldn't they collectively cover each other and retreat? Screech! But reality didn't give everyone much time to think. A white monkey suddenly let out a piercing scream. All the white monkeys also started screaming. The next second, they all launched an attack on the team. Battle. Maintain formation. Each team began to issue orders to prepare for battle. Swish! 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 The archers of each team began to attack. Arrows whistled out with the sound of breaking air. The white monkeys ran on all fours and were very agile. Some arrows flying head-on couldn't hit their targets at all. Instead, they got faster and faster. When they approached the team, they leaped high and, brandishing sharp claws like tough blades, directly plunged into the various ranks. For a time, shouts of killing and painful howls filled the entire cemetery. Originally, Fang Hao's team and Eric's mercenary group were covering each other, but under the continuous attack of the white monkeys, they were instantly scattered. They each began to resist the white monkeys' attack while retreating towards the wall. Using the wall behind them as cover, they defended against the frontal attack. Fang Hao also joined the battle, holding an iron sword in his right hand. He cast a frost armor on himself to prevent special situations. As the battle continued, the number of personnel in each mercenary group decreased. Although his side hadn't suffered any casualties, if everyone else died, they would also be in danger. He thought about whether to hide first and then let the bone dragon unleash a wave of area of effect breath attacks on the area. This idea had just arisen in his mind. Fang Hao's peripheral vision saw the dragon-scale mercenary group, while resisting the white monkey's attack, moving rapidly to the right. Near the wall of the stone castle, they directly took out an earth-colored scroll and opened it. The ground under the feet of the dragon-scale mercenary group members seemed to start rolling. The next second, an earth wall rose, forming an oval, earthy yellow shield that enveloped all the team members. The appearance of earth element defense magic also attracted everyone's attention. Damn it, Primo, what do you mean? Dragon scale, you cowards. You're acting like turtles now. Damn it, brothers, retreat, we don't care anymore. Retreat, we don't care anymore. Seeing the dragon scale mercenary group shrinking inside the earth element, magic defense, the various mercenary groups instantly became furious. In addition to cursing, more people directly led their teams to flee. But how could human speed compare to these monkeys running on all fours? Without running out of the stone castle's range, they were entangled in a fight again. Dimiterga, Fang Hao called softly. Understood, my lord. Dimiterga agreed, took a deep breath, and exhaled a cloud of mist, enveloping his team within it. His side had few people to begin with, and the range of the mist was not large. The white monkey's intelligence was clearly not high. When they saw the target in front disappear into the white mist, they immediately stopped and turned to attack the other teams. The mercenary side instantly collapsed without being attacked, and were chased and devoured by the white monkeys. Not far away, Eric sat paralyzed on the ground. His originally luxurious armor was covered in scratches. His whole body was stained red with blood, and he sat there weakly. "Mr. Fang Hao, are you still alive?" Eric shouted loudly. All his people were dead. Only he survived by chance, because he fell into a collapsed coffin. But he wouldn't live much longer either. He looked at the mist rising on one side, remembering that it was the location of Fang Hao's team. Perhaps Fang Hao and the others were still alive, seeing several white monkeys approaching him, their long tongues flicking out. He called for help in the direction of the mist, but the mist was thick, and he couldn't see the situation inside at all. Alas, what am I thinking? How could they have survived? Eric shook his head with a mournful expression and a bitter smile. Taking a risk for nothing, not only did he kill his subordinates, he was also going to die here. He had property in the city, and he had already thought of a name for his first child, with Miss Rolana, but he was going to die here. Seeing the white monkeys rushing closer, he closed his eyes. He cursed inwardly just as he thought he was going to stuff these white-skinned monkeys to death. Swish! A sound of breaking wind suddenly rang out. He suddenly opened his eyes and saw a fiery red arrow explode in front of him. A white monkey leaping into the air was sent flying backward, tumbling twice. Immediately after, a figure quickly swept towards him. He recognized her. It was the orc girl beside Fang Hao, Miss Anja. Isn't that the maid beside Fang Hao? How could she be so fast? Anja rushed directly in front of him, grabbed him by the neck, and directly threw him into the mist. He only felt himself flying, with the sound of wind whistling in his ears. The next second, he landed, and after being thrown dizzy, he saw Fang Hao and the others, drinking water and looking at him. What's going on? Outside, the fighting was fierce, and they were having afternoon tea here. At this time, Anja, who had gone out to rescue him, also rushed back, followed closely by 3 white monkeys. They were also eliminated by the lizard men with a few casual slashes. Mr. Fang Hao. Eric scrambled to his feet and said in a low voice, "Eric, where are your people? Why are you the only one left?" Fang Hao asked. The white monkey's attack had scattered all the teams. They hadn't paid attention to the situation of Eric's team, but now it seemed the situation was not optimistic. "Alas, I'm the only one left," Eric said with a dejected expression. Then that wounds on his body made him look like a bloodied person, and his face was even paler. "Do you have any healing potions?" Fang Hao checked his injuries and asked casually. Eric's left shoulder and chest area had large wounds. His leather armor should be a high-quality piece of defense. Otherwise, with this kind of attack, he would have already died. I've already drunk. 1. Eric winced, covering his wound. The temporary safety made his wounds start to ache. Fang Hao took out a bottle of anesthetic and gave it to him to drink. Eric's expression instantly relaxed a lot. After drinking some water, he sat aside and began to rest. The fighting outside the mist gradually quieted down, except for the dragon-scale mercenary group using an earth element scroll, and Fang Hao's side releasing the misty sky. Inside the cemetery, there were no more surviving mercenary groups. Perhaps some people could escape, but more people had stayed here. He glanced at the dragon-scale mercenary group, still wrapped in earth elements, and thought for a moment, directly using divine presence, or to notify the 2 bone dragons following in the air, to begin attacking the area below the cemetery. The next second, 2 huge roars came from the sky. The bone dragons swooped down from the clouds, unleashing streams of death breath at the white monkeys in the cemetery. The monkeys hit instantly shed flesh and bone, turning into scattered white bones. The white monkeys had no fear of the bone dragons whatsoever. They climbed up the stone castle, and when the bone dragons lowered their breath attacks, they pounced towards the bone dragons' backs. Some white monkeys that successfully leaped onto the dragons' back began to swing their claws, attacking the bone dragons. But the bone dragons were level 10 units. With a forceful throw in the air, they sent the white monkeys flying, shattering into a puddle of flesh and mud. What's happening outside? Is there some new monster again? Primo, that son of a bitch, he'll die a horrible death. The anesthetic made Eric drowsy, but he still cursed incessantly. He couldn't see the situation outside, but the intense roars and the white monkeys' screams let him know that new monsters had arrived outside. Fang Hao gave Anya a look, and the latter directly threw a punch, hitting Eric on the neck. Eric was still cursing, his expression froze, and he immediately fainted. Outside the mist, the bone dragons were still unleashing streams of death breath. The white monkeys also counterattacked in various ways, climbing up buildings and pouncing towards the bone dragons, or picking up stones from the ground to counterattack, but these attacks had no effect on the bone dragons. The white monkeys died in droves. At the same time, more and more white monkeys, while fleeing, rushed into the mist area. Looking at the people hiding in the mist, they were slightly stunned before launching an attack, engaging in a fierce battle with the crowd. Soon, the number of white monkeys rapidly decreased, and the monkeys that luckily escaped also fled in all directions, not daring to continue attacking. As the mist dissipated, the bone dragons landed beside the team, and the entire scene fell silent. Looking around, dismembered limbs and corpses were scattered in every corner of the cemetery. Fang Hao's gaze fell back on the dragon-scale mercenary group on one side, wrapped in earth elements. This earth element was clearly controllable. 2 circular holes were exposed on the complete earth wall, directly facing Fang Hao and the others. It seemed that the people of the dragon-scale mercenary group were observing the situation outside. Fang Hao glanced at the bone dragon beside him, and then at the earth wall not far away. He directly ordered, "Break open the earth wall and kill everyone inside. Roar." The 2 bone dragons roared. They flew up again, landed beside the earth wall, broke open the earth wall with their dragon claws, and directly unleashed death breath inside. In an instant, heart-wrenching wails were heard again. Fang Hao listened to the wails and didn't say anything to stop them, not to mention the dragon-scale mercenary group's intentions in bringing them here. The secret of having bone dragons also couldn't be leaked. If these people hadn't seen the bone dragons, Fang Hao might have been willing to play a scene with them, since everything was seen by these people. Then he could only use a simpler and more effective method. The battle didn't last too long either. Soon, the dragon-scale people were already cleared out. "Clean up the battlefield, collect all the items, and see if there are any treasure chests," Fang Hao ordered loudly. Everyone sprang into action and began to clean up the battlefield. Obtained quicksand trap scroll, 1207, white weapons, 2242. White various armors, 358 blue weapons, 555 blue armors, 542 gold and silver utensils, 89. Light stones, 3421 gold coins, 335 war coins, 72 healing potions, 41 antidote potions. The search for equipment was relatively slow. After all, the number of people was not large, and the number of corpses was very high, scattered here and there. There were so many items. Fang Hao picked up the quicksand trap scroll and looked at it. Another earth element magic scroll, the quicksand trap category, magic scroll. Description: can set a range type trap at a designated location to control and restrict enemies. Fang Hao had seen magic scrolls before. You could use them after opening them. This dragon-scale mercenary group was quite rich. They brought 2 scrolls. At this time, 2 subordinates carried a gold treasure chest from the depths of the cemetery. "My lord," We found a door over there. It seems there's another courtyard behind it.